thought machines could tame this land for them. That power seduced them. Made them weaker. Let their death be a warning, child. Come. That will be your final test. Trust your instincts, young one. All machines fail. But the old ways preserve our Falai people.
Uncle Arthur.
You will return as one of us. Or return not at all.
Bloedhunder wil slauteren. I give my offering to the All-Father. The Rikar Jotun that plagued our people. I found its lair. Bless me, Uncle.
Have you chosen exile?
I have brought down a creature that none among us has ever slaughtered.
You traded the lesson of the hunt for a quick kill with a trigger. You betrayed the old ways. Watch your tongue, child.
You are afraid of a power you do not understand.
That power enslaved us! You reject the very wisdom that kept us alive. You reject us.
I have spent 10 winters proving myself to you.
It is not my respect you must earn, young one. for me.
I failed you. Forgive me.
Nay, young one. Nay. I lived to see you pass the test. It was not the gun that protected them. It was you. Perhaps there is more to the old ways than the weapon we chose. And beast none slaughter. You will be the first. Luthunder. The old father guides you now.
Farewell. Go now to Valhalla End.
This is the Apex Legends Global Series, where the best Apex Legends competitors in the world gather together to take their shot at playing for glory, fame, and bragging rights. When we last met for online tournament number 3, the battle between Gamers Origin and Gambit Esports was too close to call. In the end, Gamers Origin couldn't keep up as Gambit built the majority of its point total by piling up kills while securing a first-place finish in the 5th round. But today, the dropships are loading up with more challengers, all vying to knock the crown off of Gambit's heads. With players like Faizu from Na'Vi and Hackis from Alliance all looking to wipe the champion squad. Will anyone have what it takes to unseat Sunset and the rest of Gambit? It's time to find out which teams are going to surprise us. Who will pull out those devious, notorious rat strats? Who is going to outshoot, outthink, and outplay their rivals? Who's pushing with R99s and PKs? And who's sitting back with a scout? Ready up and settle in. Welcome to the Apex Legends Global Series.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, we are still home, but this is a new online qualifier for Apex Legends, so we've got something to be excited about as everyone around the world kind of stays cozy and stays safe while we play. We've got some great action from the best competitors in Apex Legends to bring to you today. That rhymed. I didn't mean that to rhyme. Trust me. Okay, guys, my name is Rainday, and I'm joined by a special guest here today who is going to be bringing the flavor, bringing so much analysis to our gameplay. A guy who's played at the pro scene, analyzes the pro scene, and coaches the pro scene as well. We've got Hotzik on with us today. So Hotzik, how are you, man? So excited to have you on the broadcast.
I'm really excited, man. This is something I've been looking forward to for a while. I know, and I'm very thankful for the community support. I know a lot of people pushed and wanted me to be here. So I just hope I don't really let anyone down. And I more so hope for some really, really good games today.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. We saw a little bit of a teaser last week of what happened in online qualifier number 3, and there's a lot of implications into teams that are still vying for a spot at Redemption today, and maybe some newcomers who will breathe new life into the European scene. We've got a whole schedule of action, so I do want to bring you some attention to what we've got, because it's not just EU, although that's what we're starting out with today at 9:45 a.m., but later on in the day, we will be going to North America. At 5:45 p.m., you'll see the teams that many of you are very familiar with if you're on this side of the pond. The TSMs, can they find a win back over Liquid, who usurped them to stop their 6-peat and ultimately see if they can get back on top. There's so many great storylines there, roster swaps, and we'll get into that as we do come across it, Hotzik. But it's EU today, and man, great storylines there as well. Overall, which region you a little more anticipating is going to have some high-flying action?
I mean, I'm a little bit biased. I think North America will be probably more of like the fan favorite, and don't hate me, Europe. But I mean, let's be real. There's some really big storylines in North America. You got like TSM being dethroned by Team Liquid, so now people are going to be looking to see if Team Liquid can bring the back-to-back. And you have a lot of like the big streamers as well that play mostly on North America. But I think EU is also really interesting because unlike NA, EU has had very many different outcomes, and a lot of the top teams in EU sometimes not even qualifying. So I think EU is like it's more interesting in this if you like random or like different teams winning each time. Then EU is definitely going to be more interesting for you, and I'm excited to see because there's some also the two regions play very differently. So I'm definitely excited to see what they pull out.
Yeah, we'll have a ton of stuff to get into what we expect today as well, heading into EU, because there are some great storylines we're going to hit with Hodzik and the crew of casters who are alongside for the ride. But of course, we've got the format for this today. If you're maybe new, you don't really know how these online qualifiers work. It's basically a 5-round showcase where each round consists of 4 matches. After each round, the team with the highest scores advance to the next round, and ultimately, if they can make it past the semis, they wait a day and they play in the finals, which we showcase here live. So it's really exciting. It's a good format. How do you feel the community and the pro scene is taken to this format, Hodzik?
It's definitely a lot better than the previous online tournaments in terms of at least the road they had to take to qualify to get here, because before it was best of 3, and that really battle royales have so much random factors. The best teams in the world might not qualify just because 3 games isn't all that much. So the road to leading to qualifying here, being 4 games, is certainly a lot better, and then 5 games. Personally, I think probably 6 games is a good medium on just on testing just how consistent a team can play. But I think 5 games is really good. And I'm definitely hoping it's interesting because every single game will have like a different narrative depending on how the last game went. So
totally.
I'm interested. I'm very excited to see, especially how EU plays out.
It set up for a great week last week in EU with basically 5 teams in the top 4, 4 teams in the top 4 finishing within 6 points of each other.
Yeah, I saw him covering you up.
Yeah. So are we back here, ladies and gentlemen? We might be back. All right. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Had a little bit of a back end issue that we've solved, but we're back on track, ready to get this thing started. Luckily, that's not mid-game, so you guys just get to continue to hear us get through this so we can get to the good stuff, which is Apex Legends. But yeah, here's the pricing coming up in just a moment. We've seen that this is how the squads play. The team with the highest score is the winner of number 4, but this is what they're playing for. $7,200 for first place. Second place, $4,400 as well. Third place, $2,700. And these numbers are great, especially with how consistent this tournament is being run. We're doing, I think, 4 of these in this month, and that's after so many things have gotten canceled and adjusted thanks to this huge epidemic that has happened, this pandemic around the world. It's awesome, Hodzik. I think you would agree to see these numbers and this money and prize pool being offered to the community to keep the pros playing for something and to keep, I think, ingesting that back into stimulating the high level of competition and I think effort that these players are putting into it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, without a doubt, we'd all prefer to be playing on LAN at live events in front of people for a lot more money. But given the circumstances, obviously, this is the next best thing, and it's better than playing for nothing. But also, at the end of the day, even though people are playing for a decent amount of money, at the end of the day, if you're a competitor at heart, you know that the number one thing at stake is pride and respect. And that's kind of, I think, what ultimately all of the players are really playing for. Notoriety, all that kind of stuff. So we are definitely lucky. We're probably going to run into some issues down the road. This is all being done remote, but we are very lucky that we at least have this option to be able to do this and bring this cast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where so many people are working so hard on it. Again, shout outs to all the production, the crew, the talent, everyone who's making this possible, because it's not easy to do it, but we've all figured out a way to kind of, I think, get the best out of, what the circumstances has kind of given us, so to speak, for these last few weeks. Well, let's move on to, of course, the points. How you're getting points in this. It's pretty specific to most battle royales. Apex Legends does it a little different to where 1 additional point per kill. There's no kind of at 2 points per kill. I've seen games have a lot more incentives for kills, and placements as well. Pretty tame as far as first place gets you 12, second gives you 9, third gives you 7. And really, you don't score any placement points until you get into the top 15. And so there's a lot of conversation, Hodzik, around how do you play this? And what can viewers expect teams to be going for here? Are they going to be rushing points for kills? Are they going to be trying to just get placement points and hope whatever kills come along throughout that will be an added bonus? How do you think teams are going about this?
I mean, I think that's the beauty of a game as complex as Apex, because I think we can all agree mechanically in terms of battle royales, Apex is the most aggressively rewarding battle royale. At the end of the day, we all know third parties are annoying, but compared to most other battle royales out there, people want to get in gunfights. People want to engage and wipe other squads out. Right. So there is going to be a stark difference between two big play styles. Basically, some teams are going to be playing purely for placement. They're going to try to get the best the best spot in the center of the circle where they think it's going to end, and then kind of just try to screw over every team around them. And then there are some teams that are going to play the edge of the circle and just try to wipe every team that they think is worse than them. And both are very viable strategies.
And you talked a little bit, we may save this for maybe just some conversation or when we get back to some analysis as well. We talked about different compositions that are doing different things for that, whether you're picking up a Gibraltar or you're staying with that Pathfinder, Wraith Watson. These compositions, like you had so greatly mentioned in our rehearsals, have different goals, and you may play a side of a circle or rotating in, or you may try to rotate in early if you have a Pathfinder versus a Gibraltar. We'll get into depth with all those things, and of course, Hodzik continuing to give great insight onto how the community and the pros are looking at this game. But we want to talk more about the storylines, because Europe, let's admit it, maybe hasn't had as strong a storyline as North America, with TSM winning everything. It's been a lot more up and down in Europe, Hodzik. But let's take a look at these leaderboards for these teams by ALGS points. Gambit Esports, Ad Hoc Gaming, there's a couple of stories being developed from these two teams specifically as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you mentioned, there is a very big difference. Spoilers, the NA version of this graphic looks a lot different, and it's a lot more top-heavy. Right. But I think, like I said, I think it's cool because both regions kind of serve for different purposes for different people. Like, I personally, I thought it was cool to see TSM win so many tournaments in a row, because in a setting like this with so many random factors, it's crazy to me. It's mind-blowing that they're able to win 5 tournaments in a row versus then you go to EU, and it's almost anyone's game. I mean, like I said, you even see some really good teams not qualifying. I mean, you hate to see it, but, Virtus Pro didn't make it. LG didn't make it, unfortunately. You love to see those teams play. But it's crazy how big the difference it is. And, I mean, this graphic right on the screen shows all of that.
Yeah, and you can tell, I mean, you look at Gambit Esports, kind of the dethroning aspect of, will they be taken down from last week? Yeah, because they're not participating this week, and whether they, I'm not sure if we followed through on them not qualifying or if they've just elected not to play this week, but they won't be in online tournament number 4, and that leaves a little bit of a wide open area for these teams like Gamers Origin, Myth. You see the Navis, who placed 16th last week with 12 points, trying to obviously up their game here since they have a pretty decent total overall score in ALGS points around the global leaderboards. It's going to be some great stuff to follow up with as well as we start paying attention to it. And one of my favorite things that I think we've got coming up here is our teams to watch, because there's a few teams, Hodzik, that when I first saw them kind of blew my mind, whether Europe, whether North America. It's been the fun storyline for me, a Caustic being introduced into competitive Apex Legends and not just doing well, winning. And so we've got Alliance back after them not being involved last week in our finals. We now have them back as one of the 5 teams to watch here from Europe.
Yeah, and definitely, I think they're going to be even more interesting this time around, not just because they won, but their Caustic was played by Lowly, who is no longer part of them. Yep. He'll be replaced by IPN. So, and they threw IPN as well on Caustic. Caustic's, for those that aren't into competitive Apex all that much, Caustic is not a very meta pick. He's not used by teams frequently. So for another player to just jump into a team of 3 and be kind of pushed into playing Caustic, it might be a little rocky. But I do know IPN. He's a great guy and he's an amazing player. I'm really, really interested to see how they work it, because I mean they are very good at running the Caustic. Hackis is a really good IGL. He knows how to call the rotations based on playing around a Caustic. So I think all IPN is going to need to do is just throw gas everywhere.
And that's one of the things that I think you throw gas everywhere. If only your job was that easy. I mean, I maybe consider me, guys. I'll throw a gas canister somewhere else. I'd like to play pro. But no, there's so much more that goes into it. And you mentioned in-game leading. It's one of those things that when you look at other players like on Ad Hoc Game, you look at Matafe, a great in-game leader who streams a lot of those comms, them making adjustments to be better. Also, really looking at Alliance, though, with Caustic coming into the fray and not only being successful, but winning, it turned a lot of heads in Europe, I would say. And it got a lot of people thinking that, wow, this is not only a strong strategy, but it's being played to its absolute best thanks to a lot of the shot calling around with Hawkes and what he is doing. So we have an opportunity here to take a look at Hawkes a little bit more in depth as they get ready for online tournament number 4.
I just had to do it for the fucking clip. My name is Jon Håkansson, also known as Hackies, and I play for Team Alliance.
Look down,
I've played competitive gaming pretty much my entire life. I've been top 500 in pretty much every game I've played, but then when I was 19 years old, I decided to take a break for a few years and join the army. The army gave me a lot of confidence that I didn't have before, made me believe in myself a lot more, so that I had the courage to take a lot more opportunities than I normally wouldn't. When I came back home, Apex came out, I realized I was really good at Apex and decided to go pro in it.
What's the crack? What's the super low as well? What's the super low as well? I'm pushing.
I'm known for being the shot caller for my team and also a very aggressive player. I'm known for making openings so that my team can succeed.
2 seconds.
All that. Being the team captain and IGL for Alliance is a lot of responsibility, but I'm a very proactive person, so it definitely suits me very well.
Nice, boys! Let's go!
So my legend of choice is Wraith. She has a passive where she can notice when someone's aiming at her. Her Q is also an escape, so you can always get out of bad situations. Your ultimate is a portal which you can rotate with very easily. Team Alliance runs a little bit off meta comp. We're on Wraith, Watson and Caustic. We're currently the only team in the online tournament 2 that ran it. A lot of people can't really handle our comp because they see us as annoying, and that's our advantage of being annoying so that people can't deal with us.
It's like they will not be able to hold this, I'm not sure. And it seems like, yes, they will finally fall. Alliance Vapes cleans it up, and the Mastiff gets the job done.
Winning the ALGS Online Tournament 2 was an amazing feeling. I think we were all just in perfect sync with each other, and that's what you need to be in as a team. Once you hit that perfect sync, then you can accomplish pretty much anything.
What's on, crack? Ett uppe, död! Alla döda!
Online Tournament 2 was my first big win in competitive gaming, so it definitely meant a lot to me. Being one of the best teams in EU is an amazing feeling. Definitely shows that all of our hard work has paid off, and we've gotten a lot of respect for it. The future is very bright for Team Alliance. Keep grinding tournaments and hopefully keep making a name for ourselves.
Let's go!
What an incredible showcase and journey from Hawkes. You talk about a young man who's so successful in gaming, hits 19 years old, top 500 in everything he's done, joins the army, and gets a little bit of life experience, gets a little bit of that toughness that sometimes you need to find by going outside of your comfort zone, comes back with that confidence, Apex launches, and this starts this journey that ultimately led to 2 weeks ago, him and his team winning with the most unconventional lineup we've seen thus far in competitive pro play. Hotzik, that's a pretty amazing story to see.
Oh, absolutely. And it really kind of brings home the point that you mentioned life experience, for example. I know a lot of the players in the scene. I've played a lot of ranked with them, scrimmed with a lot of them. I find that a lot of the really confident and the really, veteran IGLs, in-game leaders, are the ones that do have a lot of life experience. And that helps them so much because you're only really as strong as your leader in this kind of game when everything starts to hit the fan,
Absolutely, man. Well, we've got a little shout out to some tweets that we saw Alliance post after they got their big win and guaranteed a spot in the finals. Grand final slot secured. The Alliance GG say crazy tough groups, but we come out on top. See you on Monday night. Long live Alliance. #ALGS. Apex Legends. Make sure you guys tweet us out at hashtag ALGS. And of course, if you want to tag at Play Apex, which is our social for pretty much everything, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, you might be featured on the broadcast today. Give us your thoughts, give us your moments, and especially any pros or anybody who's in the community that wants to give a special shout out. It's an amazing thing to see. We've got so many good things to go away to start off with, but let's talk about game one quickly, Hotzig. I want to get your thoughts. What are you anticipating happens here? It's kind of a skirmish when everyone starts the day in these finals, but if you could give some predictions, what would they be?
Well, Randy, the toughest thing about any game one in these BR series that I think a lot of the viewers don't normally see is that these teams all practice drop spots, like one or maybe two drop spots in particular, for months. So the first game, it's very interesting to see where teams drop and who contests who. You know, will teams that land at the same spot, will they veer off and try to find somewhere else? It sets the stage for the rest of the round, or I guess the finals. So I'm very interested to see just kind of what happens off drop.
And it does seem like we're going to have an opportunity to see, with especially Gambit and how aggressive they were playing with so many different kills, just them out of that lobby most likely will give a new rise, or at least a new avenue for teams to kind of fill that void, or the lobby to be played a lot differently. It may be more passive than we've seen it before here in Europe, which is tough to say because Europe's already pretty passive in general.
Yes.
And as far as, looking at how do you kick this off, if this is your shoes as well, my man, are you going for that normal spot? If you get 50-50, are you changing game two, or are you just saying, you know what, we got to try and assert dominance? Same thing. We're going to live and die by what we've practiced and what we think will work.
So a lot of it actually comes down to, do you know who's contesting you, and do you think you're better than them? Straight up. There's like in a game like this, knowing your opponent, like what skins they use, for example, is actually like a big indicator. If you think you're better than them, and if you know you can outgun them, then by all means contest them. Don't let them get away with your loot, because a lot of the lesser teams that know they can't win the fight, they'll drop, they'll take as much loot as they can, and then they'll just dip. They'll just book it somewhere else. So if you are the stronger team, absolutely contest and make sure they don't run away with your loot, because it could hurt you in the long run.
Well, that's obviously something to pay attention to. I don't want anybody taking my loot. I don't know if I would feel confident, I think, in a scenario like this to go against what I had already practiced. But I think it's something I always talk about as we get ready. Again, game one about to kick off, guys. So we're just loading up into game. We'll get you to your casters in just a moment. Really looking at how do you adjust on the fly, because it is a game of not just one thing going right, but if something goes wrong, finding a way to, down the line, make it go right again through constant adjustments, through recognizing what's going your way and what you need to shift. And so that's what we're going to see in 5 games. We've got so much great action coming for you. I'm going to kick it off. Let's get to your casters, ladies and gentlemen. It's the lovely Fallout and Onset who will be taking you through game 1 here to kick off our ALGS number 4.
Rain Day Hotzig, thank you so much for a great intro and pre-show. And that is right, Fallout here joined for the very first time with the one and only Onset. Onset, it is great to have you back on this broadcast, my friend. We missed you since Poland and Sweden. How's it feel to be back, my friend?
It feels amazing, man. And what a region, an opportunity to cast as a first game. It's so unpredictable. I think the only thing we can predict is the fact that it will be unpredictable. You're looking at some of the teams, John, that haven't even made it through to the final. Some huge names already, the likes of VP, North, Luminosity, Weigers, Gambit, the winners of online tournament number 3. They went out in the quarterfinals. They didn't even make it through to the semifinals, which shows the depth of talent that there really is in Europe.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A variety of teams that you expect to be here that are not. On the flip side, that opens up an opportunity for teams like No Weaver and a couple other squads that we have not seen necessarily just yet that are performing for a very first time in an online tournament finals. This is online tournament finals number 4, so we've had 3 tournaments before this to kind of establish our top teams, but that's what you love about the open tournament format. Anyone, an amateur, a new player, and the like, can work their way up as a top player, can qualify for this grand final, and it's awesome to see that shaking up on the European side of things. It looks like game number 1 is underway. 20 squads still left, so we have not seen any early aggression or griefing coming through as we're currently on board of the Alliance. We saw the intro of Hockey's earlier and the leadership he shows.
Yeah, and a little bit of a team change here as well on Alliance. You see IPN coming in, and he's actually going to be jumping on the Caustic, which has kind of been the signature pick for this Alliance squad and has obviously brought them to success along the way. So very interested to see how he's going to slot into this lineup and see if they can keep that kind of dominance up. But it seems like a regular drop for them off the start. And one thing that I did want to highlight is, like they were talking about in the desk beforehand, this first game, I feel like it really does set the standard for every single team. There's going to be some contesting going on for drop spots. There's going to be some confusion. And we were lucky enough to speak to EMF, which is one of the players who's been involved with the pro scene for a little bit in Europe. And he was saying he's expecting some carnage off the start with drops here, with teams contesting each other. However, looking at the top right-hand side of our screen, we can still see, like you mentioned, 20 squads left. So it looks like everyone's kind of found a way to be comfortable on the map.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Big shout out to the EMEF from the UK, coach of pro team, who's competing in these online tournaments consistently, and also a huge contribution to the community and our talent squad. Is he's able to give a lot of great insight from the insider perspective. So thank you for putting together some great documentation for us, helping us understand where teams are going to be dropping. As mentioned, an expectation there will be early game fights or a lot of confusion because there are so many new teams in this online tournament lobby that maybe aren't used to playing against each other. But nothing so far, as it looks like teams are pretty content just splitting loot. And that'll happen often. You'll see 2 or 3 teams drop Skyhook, one, 2, or 3 teams, Fragment East and West, split the loot, not wanting to fight early on, not trying to allow RNG and maybe a bad weapon drop off the rip to affect their game, and instead opting for late game play. And that's what we're going to see so far. Of course, as I say that, it looks like a bit of a fight, or at least some nades being thrown here on the Fragment side of things with an early game push from Red Reserve.
Yeah, it looks like an early game push might be coming in, and this is going to be a battle for decent positioning as well. We've had the opportunity to see not only the first circle, but we've seen the Pathfinder passive coming in as well to show us that second circle, and it is going to be around the sort of Fragment East area, maybe just pulling outside of that. So while this battle goes down, it's not just a battle for, kill points at this point. This could be a battle that takes someone into the top 5 potentially towards the end of this first game.
And you got to be kidding me what we're seeing right now from Odd Fluffy. The aggression coming through single-handedly, taking on an entire team. Finally, rotation from his teammates are going to come through, and it looks like Red Reserve with some early aggression is going to pay off. Odd Fluffy with, actually, it may have been a Hyarka, with an L-Star melting 2 members of the opposing team. That's going to be our first squad eliminated. Ice has been broken here in online tournament number 4.
Yeah, first squad down, like you mentioned, and to be honest with you, it's a ballsy play to make in game number 1 as well, to be aggressive on a team who has a strong position potentially towards the end zone as well. You lose that, you go out of the game with 0 points, and that in the first game is really not a position you want to be in. So to take that fight early on, I love the aggression that they've just shown there.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Red Reserve, another one of those squads. Obviously, a big reputable organization. Big shout out to the Red Reserve organization supporting European competitive Apex. But we haven't seen a lot of them in the online tournament finals. So with their debut here, at least from what I've seen, a strong start. They pick up 3 points from 3 kills. And guess what? They're going to get all of the loot of the Fragment side of things. So that's a good position for them. And again, it was all thanks to the Watson, Odd Fluffy playing with ultra aggression, recognizing I have an L-Star. I'm better than you. I'm going to take that 1 versus 2, no problem.
Yeah, it's not just that as well. I mean, look at their loot as well. You're looking across the board and you had gold armor, you got 2 purples, you got decent weaponry up close as well. And put that into perspective of, now that they've got a central position in zone, they're good. They don't have to do anything. They can just wait for everyone else to move towards zone, try and pick off some kills. And when it even gets towards the end game, they're probably going to be thinking long game here, John. They've got the weaponry to work with that as well as the shielding.
Exactly right. Flipping over to a team we've seen quite a bit of in competitive Apex, going all the way back to the preseason invitational in Krakow, Poland last year, is Cooler. Sign, of course, joining that roster since that tournament, and has been playing consistently with that Cooler squad ever since. Looks like Triumph is going to be tagged up over back at Fragment, so a continued fight, and it's going to be Red Reserve again. They are not letting go of the gas pedal here, as Odd Fluffy with a Peacekeeper now is going to take out Graceful. Red Reserve continues to play with the utmost aggression.
Yeah, love it from Red Reserve as well. And I think the fact that they won that early game fight in such a convincing manner as well, that, as I mentioned previously, they've got the armor, they've got the weaponry. If someone threatens them and they see that they've got blue shields or less, why not take the fight? Why not be aggressive and get extra kill points on the board? A fantastic start here from Red Reserve. And it really does look like they've been looking forward to this game 1 almost as much as we have.
And they are put on a show right now with, again, what might be their debut in online tournament finals. I haven't seen a lot of Red Reserve in the grand finals. And I love the point you just made. It's about resource management, right? If you recognize that your resources, and that means your health, that means your weapons, that means what you have at your disposal, is greater or superior to the team against you, why not take that fight? In retrospect, if you play the positioning well and if you play the fight right, your resources are greater. You should have the advantage in that fight, and you should be able to take that advantage. And Red Reserve's doing a great job of that. Recognizing you have an L-Star early game in close quarters fights, that's an advantage. Recognizing you have higher shield than the other team, the point that you made is another advantage. Red Reserve's doing such a good job taking their advantages and picking up 4 kill points already in a first place spot right now. Now the question is, can they make it to late game?
Yeah, just to kind of emphasize on that point and expand on it even more, think about when they're taking these fights in the game as well. These fights are happening within the first circle closing, which means that there's not going to be a lot of teams around to potentially third party them as well. Teams are still going to be rotating from their original drop spots, moving in towards Fragment East. And you've got to remember, some of those teams won't have the Pathfinder beacon as well. So some of those teams are going to be still thinking about, are we going to shadow a team who we can see with a Pathfinder to move towards the circle? Are we going to kind of guess from our game knowledge about where this is going to end? And as we see the overhead map, you can kind of look across and see there's a few teams at the moment who don't seem 100% convinced about where that end circle is going to go. So taking those early fights when there isn't that third-party opportunity shows great opportunism from this Red Reserve team.
Yeah, spot on, and perhaps a little bit of luck as well, as they are, to your point, they're not running a Pathfinder, but the third ring is going to be right on them in Fragment East, so they are well positioned not only for 4 points already in early game aggression, but to make it to late game if they can play their positioning correct. Keep in mind, them not having that Pathfinder meant they didn't know where that ring is going to go, but it did end up right on them. Great position, plus you have a Gibraltar, plus you have a Watson, you have a lot of defense, a lot of opportunity to post up and take control of some solid real estate in Fragment East for that late game ring, as Red Reserve's in a good spot. Currently on board with Myth, playing over towards the Geyser, and it looks like they spot someone and the rotations are going to come through. They're just going to post up in this Geyser for now.
Yeah, Myth, we should talk about these guys a little bit because we talked about some of the bigger names that aren't there, but Myth are kind of a team that's, in my opinion, maybe gone under the radar a little bit. They've made it to the finals of every single online tournament in Europe so far, and I don't think anyone else has that accolade to kind of show and put up on their wall as far as these lobbies are concerned. So definitely a team to watch as the tournaments roll on. The question now is, now they're qualifying for these tournaments, can they improve their placements every single time that we see them?
Yeah. 4 straight online tournament qualifier finishes. Only team in Europe to do it. Of course, we have a few teams on the North American side that have done it, TSM being one of them. So big shot to Myth for some consistency, but Amaz & Co. currently in their situation, not the best shield to their name, not the best resources, so they shouldn't want to try and pick fights here. That's why they're not going to take that fight against Alliance. However, they are stuck between a rock and a hard place, as it looks like they're going to be sandwiched here at least a little bit through the caves to their right, and now they're going to be forced to either make a decision. Do we post up or do we push towards Alliance? Because they're going to have to. They're not in the ring right now, so they're going to have to make a decision here momentarily.
Yeah, they're going to have to make it quickly as well, John, because there's only around 20 seconds or so left on this ring before it closes. And as we all know, if you're fighting through a choke point, it's kind of an all-or-nothing play, right? If you're moving through the vault area there towards the outer side of Fragment East, if you lose that battle, you're done for. You're not going to be able to get out and rotate away. So it looks like they've made the decision to maybe take a safer route here, which in a game 1 is absolutely no surprise to me. It wouldn't be a surprise to me in a game 4, to be honest with you. So smart decision here coming in from the squad, and hopefully it pays off for them.
Yep, agreed. It looks like Alliance did rotate as well, so they're going to get a free rotation, at least momentarily in a decent spot. But they're on the edge of that ring. Strong chance that the next ring will not favor them, so they're going to have to continue that rotation. Meanwhile, on board with Samsung Morning Stars, a team that is very aggressive early as well. We know that from watching past gameplay of Lemic and Co. Let's see how they play this now, currently sitting at a choke point of themselves. And here's another squad, Na'Vi, that we did not see in online tournament number 2, I believe, but they made it back in online tournament number 3. A team that's been competing since Krakow and since Poland. Of course, the Na'Vi esports organization as a whole is one of the most storied and medaled organizations that we've seen in esports, especially on the European and FPS side of things.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Na'Vi, you hear that name, you say that name, you expect it to be in a final, right? I mean, the history that is with that organization. And to be honest, with some of the placements that we have seen from this Na'Vi lineup, it was always a little bit of a surprise to see them not make it through to the finals. However, as you say, John, have made it through here, but I think they're going to be wanting to prove a little bit to themselves in this final as well and kind of reassert some dominance. And one of the questions I had coming into this European final today, is there going to be a team who kind of steps up, a little bit like North America, where we've had kind of a pack pull away at the top, and show us some consistency across the next couple of tournaments, because that's what's missing at the moment, as we do have the opportunity to see that overhead map for just a few seconds. And as you say, it looks like these teams who are set up in Fragment East at the moment, they're going to have a pretty good time with it.
Yeah, man, that's a good call out. I believe we've seen a different European team win each online tournament, and then that team that won, sometimes not qualifying for the one after, Alliance being one of them that won online tournament number 2, but did not make it back for online tournament number 3 to the grand finals, I believe. So some a little more inconsistency on the European side of things. Perhaps that just says how evenly skilled these teams are, whereas in North America, TSM just continues to dominate. Another team that we thought was maybe that TSM of Europe, Luminosity Gaming, back-to-back now, 2 times they have not qualified for a grand final. So we're hopefully looking forward to LG making their return in future online tournaments, but they will not be featured in this one as Desu and co.
Yeah, I mean, a surprise to everybody. Not only once, but, 2-3 times now. We're not seeing Luminosity in the finals. And it comes to the point where it's like, well, why are we talking about Luminosity? Let's give we should be talking about the teams that are making these finals and are putting in performances, because Luminosity are not, quite simply. I hate to be the bearer of bad news to Luminosity fans, but those guys really aren't having a great time of it at the moment. But back to our game at the moment, and I want to talk a little bit about holding this choke, because it's an interesting conversation that actually was brought up between Jameson, Bravo, and myself last night. We were watching a little bit of Jameson reviewing some of the European play, and we were kind of saying, people aren't holding chokes maybe as much as they used to, and we were kind of having a discussion about why that might be. And there was discussion between, the likes of the choke between Harvester and the choke, which leads on to Fragment. And, now that the map changes have been apparent and we've had the loss of tower, it's not as easy to control. However, still such a strong thing to do if you're not sure where that final circle is rotating, and you can catch teams on the rotation if you have that high ground advantage. So, interesting to see Samsung Morningstars, they're holding down that choke and playing it a little bit old school.
Yeah, that's exactly right. High risk, high reward, right? You're going to have an opportunity to pick up some kills, but you're not going to get an early rotation. You're not going to claim your real estate late game. Meanwhile, Alliance, our former champions, in a world of hurt, 2 members down. Defensive bombardment comes out, but you got to think it is almost all but over for this Alliance squad. Can this last member alive some way, somehow? It's IPN, the newest addition to this team, as we did see Lowly replaced on this roster, quitting competitive Apex, but right now we'll see if the new member, IPN, can clutch up. Myth going to push up, get a kill on, I believe it is Weigers, who gets eliminated. Weigers, another team that performed well in online tournament number 2, did not make a return in number 3, and they are back here in number 4. Currently back on board with Myth, our most consistent team in Europe.
Yeah, Myth, as you say, one of the most consistent teams. And Oxbow, a man who is, no stranger to adversity as well. A little bit earlier in the year, towards the end of last year, had some health problems, and he's recovered obviously fantastically well, and super happy to hear that. And now he's back, he's competing, and as I say, part of a lineup here who really has been one of the most consistent teams in Europe. So shout out to those guys for what they've done so far.
Yeah, I believe former member of Powderpuff Bruvs, one of my favorite team names, by the way, of all time. Currently playing as a new member of this Myth squad.
That one, isn't it?
Yeah. And what a team you get to join. This Myth team has been so consistent. Oxbow hasn't gotten credit as a top player in Europe, but I think finally has the squad and the opportunity to get that credit that he deserves. A very, very good individual player. And of course, tackling some health issues early on this year, and is still competing at the highest level. So kudos to him, kudos to Oxbow. We'll see what he can do alongside this Myth squad.
Yeah, well, now we're going to see the circles start to close in, and 18 squads on this rotation will very, very quickly become around 10, 12, because we're seeing eliminations go down across the board now, as we see another team going down as we jump back on top of Myth, and it looks like that circle is going to be ending on the little settlement just to the west of Fragment, which is there's not a lot of real estate to really be taken under here, so you're going to see a lot of teams maybe playing under the buildings, playing roofs, playing those rocks to the east of that little compound. So this is where things are going to get interesting. This is where your IGLs and your Wraiths are really going to have to make some moves.
Oh, look at this Pathfinder ultimate. It's going to get them high ground on the campsite over to the right of Fragment East. I think that was going to be placed. Keep in mind, 17 squads left, but a lot of rats, a lot of solos, as we've seen a lot of kills get picked up. Kuya was the last one that goes down. He is a former member of that Cababrilla squad that was so talented, now playing alongside Ad Hoc Gaming with Matafe and co. So we'll keep an eye at the top right of your screen to see if any more knocks or eliminations will come through. But 17 squads might be a little bit deceiving with a lot of these solo players that are still alive. Looks like Kuya's back up.
Yeah. Yeah, Kuya's back up, and he is the new addition to this Ad Hoc Gaming squad, like you mentioned. And in my opinion, an improvement. This is a player who has played Wattson a lot and isn't kind of adapting to the role. And he's kind of had a little bit of stability to this lineup. He's kind of keeping Matafe on the leash a little bit, and he gives them that anchor, which I think they might have missed a little bit in the past. But they're in a position they're going to be very happy with right now. They love to play edge of circle. They love to use that Gibraltar bubble to move in late. So Ad Hoc Gaming, even though they're kind of on the edge of zone right now, that's where they're comfortable. That's where they want to be.
Yep. Of course, big shot to Zerafer, former member of that squad. It's not a knock by any means to Zerafer and his capability, but it's just really more a tribute to what Kuya brings to a team. We've seen him make so many plays on that former Cababrilla squad. I think it's a great pickup, undoubtedly, for AHG, who performed very well last online tournament. We'll see what they can do here. 17 squads still alive, but still, you see a lot of knocks come through at the top right of your screen. The latest is going to be Cooler. All members of Cooler are starting to get knocked and eliminated. It looks like a big fight just went down on this rotation. The ring going to be closing in. Still 17 squads alive, which is hard to believe, but it's going to get crazy here in this late game with not a lot of cover.
Yeah, and you're seeing Gamers Origin here. They've kind of been forced out into the open. I think they might have expected maybe their building was just going to be able to squeak into the zone there, but they've been forced out now. And when this Gibraltar bubble drops, they are going to be forced to fight and possibly look for a rotation. You can see the portal going out as well to try and find them a safe spot into the zone. It looks like the portal might be good as well, but they're taking shots. He's actually going to have to back down here. So you're going to have to see Gamers Origin go huge and potentially win a big team fight to stay alive in this game.
As you're saying, going huge, looks like they're going to pick up a few kills using whatever cover that they possibly have. The portal's just going to put them in even more of a vulnerable position. So Na'Vi, speaking about good positions, though, Navi's the one that's currently has high ground and has a great opportunity to just rain fire on teams that are rotating on the edge of the ring, pick up some kills long range. Na'Vi very well positioned for now, but they won't be in a spot for the next ring. They're going to have to rotate momentarily. But you got to think Navi's in a good spot here to secure themselves a late game finish.
Yeah, I completely agree. They love to take high ground. They love to have that opportunity to shoot down, and they've got Devotion in the back pocket as well, which, we've heard it in the intro. Devotions, they do a lot of damage. That's the nicest way I could put it. They really will wreck you, these map drops. So the Devotion, certainly a great weapon to have in hand towards the end game. And looking across, I mean, they are set up for success here. Looking at the weaponry, looking at the shielding, looking at the positioning, Na'Vi really could be on for a big game one.
It's right, especially if they can avoid poke from teams that are already rotated in ring, which you see happening from behind them right now. So they're kind of fighting a two-front war, just trying to survive, trying to get as much damage as they can on their opponents that are on the ring, while they're also, it's almost like Inception, they're getting tagged up by folks that are deeper inside the ring. Meanwhile, Samsung Morningstar is going to pick up a few kills. That's a few that we've seen from them. So some early game aggression. We know that they're great at kind of griefing teams, playing aggressive. That's going to show. Right now, still IPN alive some way, somehow. As a Caustic puts him in a decent spot, but he's going to get tagged up significantly. Defensive bombardment comes in. He has no option but to try and push inside. IPN still somehow alive. You could breathe on him and he would get knocked, and he's going to heal up. Wow.
How is this man alive? Somehow the Caustic has stayed alive long enough to get some heals off, but the problem is here, he's got to push in, and somehow he's managed to do so. He's desperately dropping canisters here, John, to try and elongate his life, but little moves like that can go from a top 10 to a top 7 finish, and we know if you can stay alive for that extra few seconds, you can milk every single health point that you have. That can turn into points.
Unbelievable. We just saw Outsiders who are barely hanging on by a thread inside one of the houses here next to the ring. A team with a lot of mechanical skill, kind of underrated is the general sentiment on them. They do very well in scrims. Outsiders, I believe, making one of their debuts here. I haven't seen a ton of them in online tournaments, so excited to see what Outsiders can do. You saw the squad of Nasky, Strafe, and Dell, another team that drops Fragment, who had some good learnings, and you saw Nasky tweeting after the last online tournament, I don't care what happens, we're going to start playing aggressive for Fragment East. We'll see our Fragment West, wherever they drop. We'll see if that comes to fruition here.
Yeah, I mean, being aggressive on your drops, like Hot Stick was saying, if you think you're the better team, you need to bully that team off if you do get contested. You need to let them know that that's your home ground. That's where you're going to be setting up camp, and that if you want to drop there, you're welcome, but you're not going to pick up any points.
Spot on. You know, this squad, Stanny and Co, are going to see a bubble. It's not theirs. Drop, I believe. So that's going to be right below them. We'll see if they try, if they're scattered on top of a team, they try to pick that fight. 6 squads remain. So many squads got eliminated on that last ring rotation. And guess who it is? It's Na'Vi. Still in a good position, but they did take a casualty. So they have a decent high ground position playing with natural cover. They lost their Pathfinder. They don't have a Gibraltar. That's going to cost them here in this natural cover type of scenario. They're not going to have an opportunity to use that artificial cover for rotations.
Yeah, this is where Nineimps is going to have to desperately try and find a portal into a safe spot to hopefully help them rat out into a decent placement here, because as you say, they've lost some of the mobility in that Pathfinder, which means they're not going to be able to zip around, they're not going to be able to get around quite as easily, as we do see a zip plate and now coming in above. the circle as it closes in. And this zip play, I love it. The reason being, the fact that this is such an open zone here, so many teams are going to be fighting in Gibraltar bubbles and taken down. You can squeeze out placement points by just staying out of these fights.
And that's exactly what's happening on set. 2 squads going to be eliminated. Finally, they're going to get targeted. They're going to all 3 drop at the same time. So it did help them get at least 2 placement opportunities. And as I said, they're going to drop right on top of Myth and pick up 2 kills at that. Still somehow alive. The armor swap comes through for Nasky. In a great position now, they say lights on as they push with nothing but aggression towards these pills. Get a couple of good shots, and Nasky missing a few of those. He's going to want him back, takes out the R99, and connects for even more damage. Nasky, Strafe, and Dell from the zipline are going to do it. They secure a first-place finish. A team that has played so consistently in each online tournament, they've made it to the finals. They finally get that first place they've been looking for. Congratulations to them.
Yeah, amazing performance towards the end, and that little decision that I was talking about beforehand. Let everyone else fight. Let everyone else do the damage, and when the bones are settled and when everyone is falling, everyone's weak, then you drop down. Then you do your damage while everyone else has been, prioritized with doing everything else. So fantastic finish from them, but getting into that position is one thing. Closing it out is completely another. We saw big peacekeeper shots coming in. We saw fantastic teamwork as that circle closed. So congratulations. A huge game 1 for them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I was actually chatting with Nasky before this tournament, and he said, man, we keep getting so close but so far. We keep playing great in the qualifiers on Saturday, but not showing up in the finals. Watch, though, we're going to make the one adjustment that's needed, and we're going to show up here in the grand finals. He messaged me that maybe about 3 hours ago, and as you say that, they win game number 1. A huge shout-out to the young man in Nasky, who's been competing since Poland. Didn't have the placement he wanted in Poland, but he's gotten better every single time. Has been playing with Strafe and Dell since online tournament number 2, and that improvement, that loyalty to their teammates has certainly shown. And Onset, talk to me a bit about that late game Pathfinder play and that zipline play. What does that mean for some of our new viewers?
I mean, the Pathfinder is fantastic for mobility in endgame. You have so many different ways that you can play it endgame, but that was a fantastic example of essentially zipline juggling towards the end. You set yourself high above the fight that's going on below you, and you don't have to be involved. It's such a difficult position if you're on the floor and there's other people pushing in with Gibraltar bubbles, having bubble fights, firing off peacekeepers. The last thing you're going to be doing is thinking, let's aim up. Let's take our eyes off the 90% of the action to look at the 10%. So to be that one team that's set up to juggle on the zip line gives you the advantage to drop down as late as you possibly can when you get engaged. And that's exactly what they did. They were able to clean up those final players, and it was a great push. Yeah,
Thank you so much, fellas. We are here, and wow, what a match. I mean, you don't often see that type of, crossover, gymnastics and acrobatics and of course, Apex Legends. But whenever you get a Pathfinder in a circle like that, you get the opportunity to do so, man. That was the ultimate Pathfinder juggle, but it worked out for them. And Nasky, Strafe, Dell, they got the win. Break down a little bit of what you saw in those final moments.
Yeah, I mean, that zipline play is very risky to do when the circle is that big. But it's probably the best. I mean, obviously, it is the best single thing that they could have done because, like Onset said, it's basically like you're screwed if you choose to shoot the team above. Right. You're kind of, because they get to basically have free reign on the entire. They choose what fight they want to take after whatever fight is finished, and then they basically have like the ultimate like choice. Every other team is fighting for their lives. They can choose whatever they want to do. So. Really smart play to do it that early. Most teams usually do it when like the pin drop circle comes up, but really, really smart play.
And we have that final moment for you in case you missed it. Just the incredible acrobatics of Nasky, Strafe, and Dell, who rely on their big performances and finally going to drop down here, have a little bit of a duel with the outsiders. And you can see that Watson still alive. One of the most underrated mechanical Watsons out there. And obviously showing that Number 2, not too bad for them. But there's a lot of teams that kind of placed in a decent position. We're following along with Myth. I believe they were 4th or 5th in that lobby. Gamers Origin, they were 7th. And even Alliance, they were able to make it out IPN with that Caustic, just surviving into 10th place. So they're going to at least get some placement points there, despite their team going down, most of their team early. What do you make of, I think, this kind of overall way the lobby shaped up for number 1? We weren't really having an eye on Nasky, Strafe, Dell, but they've definitely put themselves in a strong position here.
Absolutely. I mean, these are guys that have been playing the game from the start. You know, they haven't taken too many breaks. But that lobby basically played out how I thought like it kind of would for a first match, like European game. Like, I mean, you saw, if you kept an eye on the counter, I believe it was 17 squads going into the 4th zone closing. And then all of a sudden, all you saw was the entire kill feed just being populated by dead bodies. So very well played. I mean, we weren't able to follow them, 100% of the way, but it looked like they got to the point where, they had, I think, a beacon near them, and they read the circle correctly. They got the right house, and then they just played the end game very, very well.
And we see again, we talked about how many Gibraltars. If you notice, there were so many Gibraltars down below. And part of the reason I think they were up there is because, yes, they were biding time. They were wanting other teams to fight each other. They were also choosing which was the best team to approach and where. But it was also one of those where the Gibraltar dome shields were actually still up, and I don't think they wanted to collapse until they had that full reign to just drop down and make sure that a team was as vulnerable as possible when they started taking that fight. And you have a Watson, you have a Pathfinder, and I believe you have a Wraith there on that squad. So that composition seems to be working out for them as far as getting their points. And obviously, Gibraltar can't put you in the sky like that. So seemingly giving a little advantage to those who, in those final circles, want to run a Pathfinder hot stick.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you see the strength of it. Like, there's no surprise to me that a Pathfinder was in that last circle because they have access to the beacon. They have more information than Gibraltar teams on the regular. But obviously the offset part of that is if you're playing Gibraltar, then you have a better chance at fighting. But you got to keep in mind, bubbles go both ways. So as they were juggling up above, they were looking to see when the bubbles, first off, when the fights are being finished, and then when would the bubble disappear, so they don't even have to deal with that. They can just fight it. Really, they had a lot of patience up there. A lot of teams typically, when they zipline juggle like that, a lot of teams kind of jump the gun when they drop down as soon as they see a team weak, but they chose the absolute perfect time to drop down and basically take the win.
Yeah, it was a fantastic showcase, I think, and this is kind of where we looked at 2 big points and 2 big storylines as well. Got to keep an eye on the fact that Nasky, Strafe, and Dell, when you look at last week's tournament coming in from Europe, 10 points total. 10 points total. So these guys now, with a big win here, have put themselves in the type of position where, you said it yourself, we were talking about this, all you need is one big win. And that's like the idea around what they've just done. Game 1, they get a big win. They start things off strong, more points than they've gotten in the entire last tournament. And now, what changes about their approach, Hodzik? And if you're coaching them, you're talking to them, what changes now, knowing that you've got a big W? We're waiting to see the point totals coming up on your screen soon. Do you change anything? Do you go a little more passive? What do you do?
Absolutely. Now, the biggest and most important factor is to make sure you're just putting points on the board. It could be 5 or just 6, something decent to make sure that you're at least maintaining that lead a little bit, because it's very unrealistic that, whatever team wins the next game is probably going to win the one after that, right? It's going to be a lot of teams clawing over each other. What matters now that you have, if winning the first game is a massive advantage, because then that dictates the rest of your play, it's very easy to play safe in this game.
Right.
Versus having to be you're back against the wall and you have to put up a massive game. It's so much easier to just coast, win a game, and then coast. Just make sure you're putting points on the board, and that's the most important thing. Don't take unnecessary risks. Just make sure you're coasting on that lead.
Some of the things I also thought were interesting in that game, too, and we followed along with certain teams who were getting aggressive early. And you saw that as we transitioned into that, it worked out for some. It didn't work out for others. But ultimately, it worked out for Nasky, Strafe, and Dell, who got themselves a total of 18 points. That's 8 points more than their entire tournament last week in the last online qualifier. 6 kills, second in the entire lobby with that. And behind them is Myth, who actually have 7 kills and 12 points. Even though they only placed, I believe, about 5th in that lobby, because of the amount of kills that they got, they were able to get ahead of Outsiders, or tie them up at least, and win on the tiebreaker of kills. Outsider still at 12. Dead Inside 9. Navi with 9 as well, rounding out the number 5. But Gamers Origin, Red Reserve, we saw that strong start as well in Capital City and Ad Hoc Gaming. A lot of these teams we've been talking about staying involved, Hodzic, which is important to do early.
Absolutely. And if you look at the scoreboard, it's not like terribly out of reach for everybody else. One example I'd like to bring back to is last week, the NA qualifier, the very first game, I believe Complexity put up a 30-point game.
Yeah,
and they still, right. Yeah, and they didn't even end up winning. I mean, look right here, the highest point game right here is 18. So that just goes to show you that you just have to be consistent. Like, consistency is key. You don't have to win any of these games. You just need to put up a consistent amount of points, and you will be fine. So none of these teams, definitely don't get discouraged. They just need to keep a level head going forward. Don't take unnecessary risks. Just make sure you're putting points on the board.
And you said it so well. The theme of this game was a lot of patient play, and a lot of teams in those final circles. Round 4, it seemed like 15 teams were still alive, and it's kind of showing it across the points as well. Everyone decided we're not going to really, take each other out of this until we have to. Thus, a lot of points ended up going to a lot of different teams. So you're right. There's no that 30-point blowout, but we've been talking about that thematically over Europe and over North America as well. One of the things I was expecting, though, was a little bit more from a start as far as Ad Hoc Gaming. And I think you look at this team having so much, adding Kuia as well. I believe Zerafer going off of that squad for this week. And, you have to look at this change, whether it's impacting them in a positive light right now or whether it matters to get a new change. And then you probably had an experience like this, getting that first win. As we take a look at some of the highlights here from this game, just talk about it. I mean, it could give you a little bit of good momentum making a switch like that, and then obviously getting an immediate dub.
Absolutely. And a lot of it goes back to the top. He's just leadership. The guy's really, really good at it. He's very capable of leading any team, especially new players, to victory.
And that is going to help them here as well as we take a look at some of these highlights. A lot of good moments with the Havoc, which we've kind of been a topic of conversation in Apex Legends. Very different as far as recoil pattern and control, as far as I think the difference between console and PC from what most people say, but it still seems to make its way into the higher edges of pro play every now and then, but not that main staple weapon over an R99 or even R301s at times. But we saw a lot of it here and a lot of PK damage as well. That burst in those final circles, certainly important to get those wins.
Oh, absolutely. Any big, large chunk of damage you can do with a Peacekeeper, hit somebody for 120, call it out to your team and just have them clean it up with R9s or something like that, or even pull out your own R9 and finish that up is always, Peacekeeper is just, I know how the community feels about it. It's a little bit strong.
Or you hit him for 8 and you say he's one shot and then you bait your teammates out. Right, like
exactly.
You would do like I do in my games, basically. But
at least at least you guys are on the right page. You're on the same page. You're fighting the same fight.
Exactly. Did you see? There was a great thing as well as if you have any memes like that, if you have any comments like that, if you have any really great things to shout out to the tournament, make sure you go to @PlayApex and use hashtag ALGS and send us your tweets. Follow the Twitter as well, of course, because this is one of the best ways to stay in touch with everything that we're doing competitively and across the game. And if you want to know more about the ALGS, you want to know about signups, you want to know about when tournaments are happening, prize pool adjustments like that, go to playapex.com/ALGS. You'll find all the information you need there, and you can stay tuned for all the action coming at you competitively. We got Hodzic as well. My name's Rain Day. We just had a great cast by Fallout and Onset. We've got 2 more casters coming up soon, and Game 2 coming up as well. But just recapping where we are at, we've got Nasky, Strafe, and Dell, who with the Pathfinder, Wraith, and Watson combination spent a lot of time in the air, found themselves landing on a pretty chaotic fight, and took the win. And now Game 2 is starting to set up. So let's pivot now and start looking forward to Game 2. Like I said, a lot of the teams like Myth, we still see Ad Hoc Gaming. We saw Gamers Origin staying involved with some pretty decent point totals, with the highest point being 18. A lot of those 12s, a lot of those 10s. What are you expecting for Game 2, Hodzic, after what you saw in Game 1, quickly?
Definitely expect people, the lower teams obviously start playing maybe a little bit more aggressive. We did see a couple early fights there early on. That might be the way it goes for this game as well. But like I said, all the top teams, I definitely expect them to play a little bit more passively, even more so, and just getting some points, making sure they're maintaining their lead.
All right, well, the narrative keeps on building, and the games keep coming. It's game number 2 as well, and for that, we're going to have a good time throwing it over to our buddies, Bravo and Jamerson. Take it away, guys.
Hey, thanks so much, Rain Day, and happy to be bringing us the matches here. Bravo alongside Jamerson for game number 2. Excited to jump in right now to this next match, which is going to be really exciting. I think Jamerson, as Hudson did, teed up, and as we saw in game number 2, the story of Europe is kind of that everything's up for grabs here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we saw in the last online tournament the split between the top 4 teams. It was only a differential of I believe, about 6 points, 58 going over to Gambit, and I believe it was Third Impact who ended up 4th with 52 points. And so it's a lot up for grabs right now. Without a huge blowout game, I don't see any team taking an early lead right now like we saw in Online 2 with the Lions consistently winning games and having a huge point differential. And so anything is up for grabs right now. One thing I do really want to mention is that Nasty, Strafe, and Dell, we saw them early on in game number 1 where they were able to take up a setup position over at No Name or the town east of Fragment East. And they only walked away with 6 kills even though they were in one of the best positions to catch people rotating.
Jag tror vi skulle gått runt Vineyard hela vägen då faktiskt.
Coming from
vi skulle gått runt
east to
Vineyard
west
till
across that top central
Capital.
part of the map. Slowly making their way, taking a look at a few teams that might have early advantages as we take a look at just some of the drops. Right now in scrims, we're seeing Myth landing at Tree, Weigers at Geyser, Outsiders also at Overlook, some of the drops that we've been seeing so far. We'll have to see if that remains to be the case, because as we heard in the pregame and also in game number 1, when you do have these online tournaments with less established teams in these lobbies, it really does put these drops kind of all over the place, teams dropping on each other, sometimes inadvertently and sharing spaces that they maybe didn't want to do so.
And they're already fighting here as Badoli is going to get knocked by Yuzako here from Red Reserve. This is not how you want to start out the first fight. Luckily for him, he was on the high ground here, so there is some time for them to try and get him up, but I don't know, maybe he was split from the rest of the team. No, we got G-Dolphin in, I believe this is a new team, trying to hold down the position, but they're already getting pushed down.
Absolutely looking at Red Reserve here to see exactly what they might have. They can as well, and now going back over to this side here of Refinery, and some, once again, like we said, that's going to actually be, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's going to be G-Dolphin and Crew who are actually getting beat up there off of Refinery.
Yeah, you do not want to be the first team out here. I'm not entirely too sure exactly how they did in game number 1.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and take a look. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they were outside of the top 10, so that's going to be a tough result for them. They're going to have a very tough games number 3 through 5, but as we're starting to see some beacons on screen here, Jamerson, as things are pulling north central here, you're already seeing pings from teams, as you'd expect, on the outskirts station. Teams are going to be looking to hold pieces of Epicenter. Fragment's going to be popular in terms of teams might only be able to get as far as one of the Fragment buildings and having to hold up. But you do have a lot of teams that are still very far west here, right? We see teams still at Mirage, Train, Fisher, Drill, and then 2 teams in Skyhook. All those teams are going to be making west to east pushes across what are going to be pretty small chokes from that western and northwest sides.
Yeah, but we were just on board with Nasky, Strafe, and Bell. They're already setting up for a center position here, and one of those teams we were talking about on the edges here. This is actually all the way on the eastern edge. We got Dead Inside, who will be able to pick up this beacon, and so I want to see exactly how they play towards this. One thing they can do, I think, because of how teams will probably try and focus getting into a Fragment West building, they can hold in Fragment East for this next circle and secure one more beacon before the next round is over. And so I want to see exactly what their rotation path is if they want to try and consider holding on to that Broken Diner building to try and get that Pathfinder beacon.
Yep, Dead Inside getting that beacon there as well. Let's take a look with them. Looking right now only on a single gold armor and then double whites at this time. So they're going to be looking to level up, of course, but now also looking at GSD. If you're just joining us, first of all, welcome to the Apex Legends Global Series Online Tournament number 4. GSD able to win the first game in Europe. But as we talked about, Jamerson, now as we see things slowly making their way towards the center, maybe a good opportunity to talk about it. Pretty interesting results in terms of numbers after that first game within the top 5, and it really only furthers the story of this passive European narrative.
Yeah, it's really weird to see, a top first position team actually end up walking away with only 6 kills there, and they secured all of those basically in that last team fight, in that last scramble amongst the top 5 teams. You expect them to get more. They were a Fragment East team that ended up rotating on over super early on and just basically didn't leave their building until they finally had to in Ring 6 or Ring 7. But this time around, I want to see if they can find something. I see that they've already preemptively set up some zip lines to take control of the rock above them. And holding kind of that train station area can be really strong as long as you maintain a good perimeter. Now, remember, one of the strengths of Watson is that she controls and zones a large area because of the distances that you can set up the fragments.
Absolutely. Now we just saw B100 here on your screen as they have already got set up, like we said, in survey camp. We'll talk about this location in a moment, but B100, one of your teams that is currently seated in the bottom 10, so they're looking for a big game number 2. But survey camp, as we saw in the last online tournament, specifically during a circle like this, these buildings become very valuable, but as teams have to move out of survey camp, which right now it'd be a safe bet that they will eventually have to move out there. It'd be a very far eastern pull if things ended on survey camp. Certainly still possible, but we'll have to see. But teams, it's a lot like it's kind of a exaggerated version of getting a fragment building. It's very hard. Once you're in, you hope you're in for the long haul, because the first team that has to move out is going to get lit up by the other teams that are holding those neighboring trailers.
It's going to be a precarious situation at the very least to try and hold over there at survey camp right now. Looking at the minimap, from what I saw, there were about 6 teams holding on the northern side of the map, which is kind of like a meta rotations that a lot of teams are taking, where they're trying to avoid a lot of teams, and in doing so, with so many teams having the exact same game plan, they actually end up running into a lot more teams or congregating in an area right now. And so that survey camp can become very populated really quickly at the moment here. But we're still waiting, of course. This is the early game right now. We only lost 4 people. We saw a squad go down early on. That was G Dolphin's team over at Refinery, and I believe, unfortunately, one of the Na'Vi members had crashed, and we saw them holding up in a building over here in Fragment West, I believe is the zipline building.
Yeah, going to be tough for them. Also, Na'Vi was a team that placed 3rd in that last game with 2 kills, and they kind of also are another example of a team that was in our final top 3 with a very low kill count there, which is not essentially what you expect to see. Just to give you a recap in case you didn't catch game number 1, Nash Strafe Dell able to win with just 6 kills. However, 2nd and 3rd were even more interesting. Outsiders places 2nd with 3 kills, and Na'Vi places 3rd with 2 kills total. So in the end, that'll put Na'Vi actually at 5th and Outsiders at 3rd. Myth will bump up with their 6th kill, 4th place win, excuse me. So definitely an interesting set of results. You heard about it during the pregame as well as game number 1. But, a lot of question marks around the European storylines. If someone asked, what is the story in Europe? You kind of have to ask, how much time do you have? Because there's a lot of threads. However, no concrete winner just yet. We came into ALGS play ready for LG to dominate the same way that they have. However, online play certainly is a different beast, and right now Europe is kind of up for grabs in terms of which team or teams want to really establish themselves as the number 1, as the 1-2. All of that still up for grabs in terms of ALGS play with online tournament number 4.
At the very least, there seems to be a winner's curse going on, right? In Online Tournament 2, Alliance won, and then they weren't able to qualify for finals in Online Tournament 3. Online Tournament 3, Gambit wins, and they were knocked out, I believe, in the quarterfinals of Online Tournament 4. And so while it's a nice victory to have, it's not long-lived, as apparently come the next tournament, you're just not able to make it out of groups. Now, back on board with Alliance here. This is a much better look for them at this point, where they are on the northwest side of the map. And so being by here by Skyhook, they shouldn't have too many people watching their backs. But you do have IPN, of course, on that Caustic, playing the tower here, making sure that they aren't getting flanked. And they needed, basically secure their backside, which wasn't what they were able to do in game number 2. You saw in their rotation when they were coming in from Fragment West, just south of that area there, that they ended up running into about 2 or 3 teams coming up behind them, rotating also. Now, as that Caustic, you don't want to be caught out in the open, and that's exactly what happened to them. Now, though, they are on the offensive, chasing after this team.
Yeah, let's see if they can make this some early damage coming in for Hack. He's going to need to be careful, but my oh my is he ever exchanging with both wing shots and thermals, able to do a whole bunch of damage. He's going to return to bat, and now Vapes as well as IPN are going to have angles for him. Alliance, of course, now with an ALGS win tournament under their belt. You heard Hawks talking about what that meant to him and the team. Also very interesting dynamic that Hodsik pointed out. IPN coming onto this team also now kind of moving into a Caustic role, which weeks ago was the last thing I think we would have expected a player to have to do, especially coming in after a tournament victory the way they have. But right now set up pretty well. Hawk is able to do a whole bunch of damage, does not convert into any KP. However, he's able to easily retreat. You do like to see kind of that aggression, though, out of your Wraith.
Yeah, for Alliance, though, they're solely trying to make it to the late game, right? That's where you want that Caustic to thrive when we're in Zone 6 and Zone 7, where his barrels and his ultimate does so much right now. Why Hawkins, though, is just positioning to try and keep people away. They're not trying to aggress so much until they have a win condition, until they get a knock or something that they can really try and push the advantage of. Back on board with Dead Inside, though. It looks like we do have a fight here. As Red Reserve versus Dead Inside for one of these positions over at Refinery.
Absolutely, and you know, this tells you just how valuable this area is. Of course, this part of all of Refinery, rather, no longer in. However, holding this bottom part of Refinery has really become a common hold, especially for teams that are just looking to play positionally, which really speaks to that EU play style as well. Now, as we take a look, Satiyama still on just tier 1 of this Evo, looking to try to get a little bit of wingman poke if he can to try to level that shield up before these next few battles, with round 2 closing in about 55 seconds.
Yeah, you definitely want to hit for that 7 extra damage. I mean, remember, with the Evo changes, with the last patch, the Evo has become so much easier to charge up. I believe 75 to get it up to blue, or 150 HP, and then another 150 to try and get it up to purple. So 225 damage total to basically secure yourself a purple armor, 200 HP armor. Not hard at all, but definitely it going down to 625 for red armor is probably the biggest strength to try and get that 225 damage there. 225 HP, excuse me, going into the late game.
Absolutely. Now taking a look here at the Weiger side, as we saw them qualify, taking a look at exactly how they came in. If I'm not mistaken, coming into this tournament is one of their the 8th in their semifinal. Crip, of course, I believe the only player hailing from Spain in this tournament, so good to see representation all over Europe, of course, here in this afternoon broadcast. If you're joining us from North America, or evening, of course, if you're joining in from Europe itself. But now that's going to be a lot of trouble here for teams on this northern part of the epicenter ridge, getting into a little bit of trouble. We do see some Weigers players going down there in the feed.
Yeah, Outsiders not really living up to their name. They're more like the gatekeepers here, as they have a great ridge line to work with as teams. So many teams, surprisingly, were on this northeast side of the map making some weird rotations, and now they're getting caught out. I think they just weren't expecting people to be here to try and gatekeep them, but sure enough, there they are right now as Taze goes down first for his team. Now it's going to be a 2v2, looks like, in this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Needs to be careful. Stanny also in a lot of trouble. That's just going to leave Satiyama and Taze both down. Now Stanny trying to get this, is able to get the fast heal, but it might not be enough. Now going to rely on the gold and the PK to try to stay alive here. It's not going to be easy. We'll see if the pressure does come in. You see both of his teammates thirsted and needs to be careful here, as this is not going to be easy. Now also taking a look here at Dark and team. Things are going to get really thick here around Epicenter. As we saw, things did pull west further, so both Epicenter and Survey Camp, teams that are anywhere around this area are going to have to make these western moves, and it's not going to be easy because it's pretty packed, or pretty stacked on this northeastern side right now.
Yeah, and it looks like he is, of course, going to be by himself. NWR will be able to stabilize off of that. They did not lose a member. Want to see. It looks like NWR are going to try and camp this body, right? They know that they didn't get the third. The Wraith is still out there. The bodies are right there. They're going to try and camp this out, and so that he can't res them, because they do have a beacon to try and use right there. So I like this move coming out from them while they decide. They have another 30 seconds before they have to start making their rotate, but making sure that Red Reserve isn't able to get back into this game, I think, would be a huge boon going into these next few zones.
Yeah, NWR looking good here, both in terms of armor as well as loot. All sorts of heals to be had. They have, I have to imagine, quite a healthy surplus here compared to perhaps the rest of the teams that are making pushes that were maybe forced to rotate early now. But also looking at the cooler side, and they might be in the most comfortable position, certainly, that we compared to the ones that we've seen of teams that have to make even further pushes from Epicenter still and Survey Camp. They're able to Watson up here, and something we'll talk about. They do have low ground. However, with the way that they've established their perimeter and their presence, they actually might be in a pretty good place here in terms of ability to poke. They have a little bit of cover to kind of duck behind if they need to, and they're sitting pretty. And right now, I like where Cooler's sitting.
Stanix actually in that 1v3 was able to take out one of Weigers himself right now, though. NWR is trying to get in on this, and they'll be able to finish off Rob from Weigers there. Getting one more knock onto Crypt. This is huge for them, as they were in a pretty tough position, but they're making the best of it now.
Yeah, Install doing some great scout damage as well from distance, as we're seeing. From the back, they're going to have to move now as they are getting trapped just a little bit. The TP is out, so they're going to fly right in. We'll see what kind of finishes they can get here. Now Paradise on the Weiger side, last player alive, has to queue out, runs into another squad. He will go down, and that's going to be rough times. Also standing in the feet does eventually go down to the PK of Darken as well, and he is going to take time to heal up as well. Now taking a look at Myth once again. Myth, a team with great Game 1 performance in the last online tournament. They were leading after 2 games, however, finished in the end 6th, I believe, in the last online event. Going to look to get a higher placing overall in online tournament number 4. As we take a look at them, they're able to loot and heal up as well. Now 16 squads remaining.
Yeah, we were talking about, of course, you can't just have one standout performance or 2 standout performances. You need to be consistent across the board. And in the last online tournament, Myth struggled in games 3 to 5, only gaining 6 points across those 3 games. Not enough to really try and close it out. And we can see if they have a better performance throughout the rest of the tournament, that they can really compete for that first place position.
Yeah, look at InStyle now on red and double purple. Really nice job, able to get some extra breaks here and now making this push, making it look easy, pushing so well together, wrapping around the corner, laying down great shots with the G7s. R99s come out, and a kill leader here now for InStyle. He's able to grab his 3rd, and they are looking very good. We saw them earlier on the bottom of Epicenter, and have they ever made a great rotation from that bottom center Epicenter now even further west?
Yeah, Myth had the advantage. They're starting off. They were the team that were actually gatekeeping. We saw the port coming in, or at least the Wraith queue earlier on, and a lot of teams getting caught up on that. I believe it was Weigers who were caught out by Myth, but it looked like Myth just didn't use that advantage. Honestly, they just kind of held their position and allowed them to walk up to them. You should not allow that to happen. You need to make sure your presence is known and you're able to keep track of all the teams. They should have known that there was another team there. If they got caught up by surprise, that is really surprising and kind of worrying.
Absolutely. Now taking a look, we just got to look at a few of the teams that are already set up on that outskirts train station. As you'd expect, every single building there, and pretty soon every single rock will be held down, as we look like we are going to close in essentially right on that outskirts station that's just outside of that Skyhook Northern Pass. There's still a few teams that are going to try to make it in from the south as well. As we take a look at EXE momentarily, they are going to dome and heal as well to avoid any damage that might have been coming in. Now 14 squads left, and they're going to be forced to move very quickly here. They have a little bit of edge that they're able to play, but now going to need the TP through all the way back towards the north for a moment. Looks like they will have a second to breathe. No, and I spoke too soon, as more damage will come in from the cooler side.
Yeah, Cooler having a great position over to the north-hand side now. Galatoric's gonna go down, and it's all up to Koze here to try and survive. He wants to make it into the top 10 at the very least, but he will fall, and we're still at 12 squads remaining, 31 players left right now. Nasky, Strafe, and Delder, I know they're in the center here. NWR have had a good run of it so far, but they have lost one member back on board with AHD, though. They're still playing over here to the southern side. They've got all 3 members still alive. And this is where I think Matafe really does shine as a shot caller for his team, getting into the late game.
This is actually the first time when we saw that Twitch, the Twitch clip that kind of went viral there with Matafe shot calling really quite a few months ago now. This is actually the exact part of the map that this happened on, so excited to see exactly how he and the crew are able to play this in this scenario. Now also to check in on Navi, we do still have Faizu, by the way, who is still in. Claus has been thirsted, but Faizu's still in the game. Navi able to make it in top 10 with only 2 players there, but also checking in with Alliance. Keep in mind, they had a 10th place finish in game number 1 with 0 kills total, so they know that the pressure is on for these last 4 games.
But again, we talked about that win condition for Alliance, making sure that the Caustic gets to the late game, and now here we are basically into the end game here as 9 squads remaining now as Nasky, Strafe, and Dell will finish off Faizu. as Faizu, that solo rat, tried his best, at least got into the top 10 position. But Nasky Strafendel, I want to talk about this. We were talking about earlier on how they didn't have as many kill points as we were expecting from the position that they had early on. But here they are, they've got center zone, and they're doing a really great job of finding the KP on the outskirts of the map from their center position.
Absolutely. Now going to be able to hold this down once again. Some low ground that they're able to hold, and it's going to be very advantageous just with the way that they're fenced up and able to be very selective about the angle that they take. 6 squads left, Cooler going down in the feed there as well. You see some pings coming in, and they're going to go ahead and get back to the building they were at just a bit ago, as we now take a look also at the Gamers Origin side. MP Sirius and Ostazeni now holding the low ground here as well.
Yeah, that was huge. We saw Cooler going down earlier on, and that was going to be the biggest struggle for Alliance to be able to rotate in, but being able to take the man up now, they'll have a free rotation to the north, and so they are safe here while most teams are gravitating towards this building right now. We've got AHG on the top here. This could be one of the big power positions. We'll see how Alliance can try and manage this here. They do have priority on the zone, though, and so this is going to be huge, especially as the only caustic team on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Ad hoc with some great angles here. Keep in mind the roofs of this building, several of them angled. They're going to be able to be very selective once again in the angles that they take as well. They'll be able to provide some great shots and great cover. And see what they'll be able to do here in this low ground as well.
SJP2, they have to be careful. Denze going to go ahead and back off now. They've got plenty of time to reset here. I think you just play for time. There's 6 squads left, 16 players remaining. There should be a rat somewhere hanging around here. I don't know who that solo player is, but you need to at least wait that out. Try to get into the top 5. Remember, the higher you get up, these points just go more, you accrue more and more points.
Absolutely. Now, we know there's at least 3 teams on this building, and now with 6 squads left, that we do see some pings going in for maybe where that solo is just now.
So yeah, the solo is strafe, actually, as he's knocked here. He's going to go down. Now we're down to, I believe it should be 5 squads.
That should be, yes indeed. Now taking a look at exactly... It's going to be Kuya that eventually gets the kill there on strafe, but now the TP is coming out for the Gamers Origin side. It's going to be Sirius setting that and trying to get across into this. Now that pre-portal is ready, they'll take it when they need. Now 10 seconds left. His teams are going to be flying out of this. This is going to be a mad dash to the north to get to this final circle.
Yeah, I want to see how Alliance actually position for this. AHG are going to try and wait this out and try to get whatever rotation KP that they can and try and take this as late as possible. But here they go. They're going to go in, taking a lot of zone damage there, but they do have a bubble down on the northern side. Alliance already getting 1 knock onto Osnazeni.
Now come in here. Going to just hold up if they can. Now also a Phoenix coming in here, but now the damage is going to be coming down. The bubble will protect them as well momentarily. Now over back to the Alliance side.
Yeah, Hawkes will be forced to queue here. He's trying to buy time. It was Matafe and AHG coming in, cleaning up left, right, and center. Rugby, though, does answer back in Alliance. We'll keep this alive for now. They do need to try and stabilize here, as 2 members are sitting on 25 HP, full armor, though.
Let's see if they can get these heals. I don't know if Alliance can be able to heal out of this. You're hearing a lot of breaks coming in here. It looks like they're going to not only slow heal, but try to get some full heals off as well. Hack is trying to find a swap. He's able to find a partial one, and that might be able to keep him in this. He is the only one to fight for this side as they're going up against the XCC players.
XCC now, I believe this should just be it. Wraith versus Wraith here. He gets the knock, but here comes the second peek out of the Watson, and somehow he's able to secure that win. 1v2. XCC.
Are you kidding me? As an amazing set of plays there and pretty non-traditional end circle that we just saw as I see now the final kills coming in. The fact that was once again kind of going along with the same storyline of Europe, Jamerson. Not exactly what you expect to see, especially with 2 Sparkle squads going up against each other in our end zone.
Yeah, definitely here. I felt like the priority was definitely on Alliance, but I think with so many Gibraltars on the field, they just weren't able to play around the bubbles as well. They got into a big fight on the southern side there, didn't clean up their fights fast enough, and that's the big thing about Apex Legends. You need to be able to close out your fights cleanly and quickly, otherwise other teams are going to get involved, and that's exactly what we saw there.
Absolutely. SJP2, in the end, they're able to close out first place with their 2 kills. Just 2. Once again, same story as that first game as we take a look. And I believe it's going to be Na'Vi in the end. Let me make sure. Excuse me, Alliance in the end that does get 3rd, and our XCC squad in 2nd as I take a look at just a few of the kills here. Looks like it was going to be 6 total for the XCC guys, as well as Alliance picking up 5. So once again, spots 2 and 3 picking up more than the first place team. goes again to kind of show you just the play style that these teams are playing so positionally heavy. These are not high kill wins. For those of you new to competitive Apex Legends, in regions like North America, you're typically going to see much higher kill counts from those top teams. However, we're seeing really position heavy play still from Europe, but in the end, your 1, 2, 3 are SJP, XCC, and Alliance for game number 2.
Yeah, and so not surprising that Alliance were able to make their way into the top 3. I was just really expecting them to be able to drive the game home, especially once they get the Caustic into the late game. And we saw during Online 2 that every time that they got into the late game with the Caustic, that they were able to win out in their lobby and do it in convincing fashion. This time around, not quite so. And I think one of the issues is that, like, this finals is one of the deadliest finals that we've had. Now, there are a lot of teams that that we were expecting to make it to finals that aren't here today, but across the board, I think EU just has a really deep pool of talents, and some of these names might not be familiar to you, to those at home, but there are still some nasty players that are still relatively unknowns.
Absolutely. Now, take a look at those top 3. I mean, your top 3 that just placed in that game number 2, none of them were even in the top 5 standings coming out of game number 1. So a very exciting games 3 through 5 coming up. And to get us ready for those, we're going to go back to Rain Day and Hodzic on the desk. Guys, over to you.
So, Hodzic, I've been talking to you a little bit about, when I this brought up to mind, I've been doing some cooking at home, and I did some slow cooked burgers, and my parents were like, "What's going on? Why is dinner taking so long?" I said, well, just wait. It will get good soon. And it's almost like the exact mirror of how these tournaments go. You have these setups, these narratives, and then all of a sudden it just builds. And game 2 was the perfect example of that, with a huge crescendo of flavor, man. I'm talking magnificent. What an ending. What a performance by SJP2. What a 1v2. I mean, we just got to talk about this, man. That was some of the best clutch plays we've seen in competitive Apex.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anytime you can, even winning a 1v1 in the late game with so many different variables going on is impressive. But winning a 1v2 on top of the fact that that was the entire team's only 2 kills throughout that entire match. Crazy. So for him to even like stay warm, for his aim to feel good, he hit some really chunky Peacekeeper shots. It's not like he cleaned up. I'm pretty sure they were both completely full health. Very impressive ending by Denze right there.
Yeah, and Denze, he comes at the perfect moment, too, and he recognizes the situation. There was so much going on between Alliance and XCC, and he took advantage of pushing that perfectly. And that 99 Peacekeeper right there was really the difference maker, and the fact that he was able to reload that R99 as well. Poke shots, pressure, adjustments, using the fence as a little bit of cover so he could kind of isolate the 1v1s, Hodzic, and not just go full in, get exposed to 2 people at the same time. He played that perfectly and puts SJP2 on the map in a way we weren't expecting. That looked like Alliance or maybe Ad Hoc Gaming's game, especially Crow Crowd's game, after they had just taken down Alliance like that.
Oh, absolutely. But one thing definitely to note, even though SJP2 might be the ultimate winner in that one game, that doesn't mean, they're somehow way higher than others. I don't quite have the exact count, but, if Alliance had more, because first place is great, but 2 kills is not going to actually net you a lot of points. It's very likely that second or third or maybe even fourth might have more points just from the kills. We don't have the numbers yet in front of us, but don't be surprised if they didn't get the most amount of points of that entire game. I would be surprised, honestly, if it wasn't Alliance.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, I think we saw a lot of different teams have successful moments. And in fact, SJB2 were kind of in a mystery novel, the person who walks in and scene 1 and then walks out and kind of nobody expects them, turns out to be the guy who did it at the very end. SJP2 were actually in the middle of that skirmish, and they ended up kind of taking the spot Gamers Origin had underneath that building with that Watson pylon, just kind of in between those boxes. And people forgot about them. I mean, Ad Hoc Gaming, I thought, was in a great position to take this game. They had high ground from the beginning. They could see where people were rotating to, and they got that Wraith portal off. And even I saw Alliance, and I don't know if you caught that clutch Phoenix kit, man, that we ended up seeing that ended up being a couple of kills for. Yeah, I mean, there were some beautiful plays there, but here is the leaderboard without further ado. Crow Crowd, SJP2, and Alliance taking your top 3, 15, 14, and 12 points, respectively. Notably, Nasky Strafe Dell, winners of Game 1, also having a pretty nice performance with 9, and Ad Hoc Gaming surprisingly having 8 after being in such a commanding position there. What are your thoughts seeing this?
It doesn't surprise me to see Crow Crowd racking up kills like that. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe they're Russian players. So Russians are, I think in all esports, Russians are typically known as a lot more aggressive players, a lot more mechanically gifted. I mean, look at Na'Vi, for example. Those guys are nuts. But I mean, I'm not surprised to see SJP2 not actually taking most points from that game just because they only had 2 kills. Even Alliance was very close, placing, getting 12 points with 5 of them being kills. I'm very curious to see now the max results. I would imagine that Alliance are actually closer to the top overall.
Well, look at this. Here we have the master results here. Nasky Strafedell with a 9-point performance and an 18-point performance before are still in number 1. X-Crow Crowd pushes themselves up, and SJP2 with that win. Now we're in 2nd place. We've got Outsiders, we've got Na'Vi, we've got Gamers Origin, and then we've got Alliance sitting at 14. So despite a great game, kind of bringing themselves in the conversation, only 2 points in round 1, which has really hurt them there. But, you know, big shout out as well. We didn't mention them. Number 4 in last game, No Weaver Esports, 10 points, 8 kills. So only 2 placement points, 8 kill points to put themselves in 11th right now, and still kind of in the conversation amongst the 10 to the bottom 10 teams.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's still anyone's game. Nasky Strafedell did exactly what they needed to do. Like I said, like they didn't put up a crazy amount of points. I think they got like, what, 9 that game?
Yeah.
And that's not a crazy amount. That's a very, like, just slightly above average game, but it's doing the trick. Like I said, all they have to worry about, and I'm sure that's probably what they're talking about, is just making sure they stay alive. Kills aren't all that big of a deal. Just make sure they have a good spot in the circle and that teams around them are dying more so than them. So they're doing really well. It's still anyone's game. You could easily put up like 30 plus points a game if you have one massive game. So it's not it's not crazy to say that it's still anyone's game yet, I think.
No, yeah, still slow burning for sure. And SJP2 got to watch out, especially after Denzay, I believe, with a fantastic finish. But there were a lot of great moments that happened in that final game as well. And I think we got a chance to see how good Hawkus actually really is as well. Just getting that clutch Phoenix off from Alliance. I don't know if many people caught it, but it was just a half second before he was finished versus getting a full health kit back. He gets a couple of downs there. He also gets an armor swap to a purple, is able to finish that off. But, you know, armor's a good conversation because these late game teams, a lot of them had the new Evo shields. And we heard Jamerson talking about it a little bit. Hotzig, you've been involved in this play and coaching. Where does the new Evo shield kind of stand, especially with the changes to now be able to level it up to its final form faster as far as competitive play and in relationship to the gold shield?
Right. So gold shield is still by and large the strongest thing you can have, even if you have a red. The ability to pop a battery in like 1 second and just get 100 health is crazy. I mean, you saw if Hawkus didn't have a gold there, he probably doesn't pop a Phoenix, but let's just assume he does. He popped a Phoenix. He saw that team look at him with like 1.5 seconds left, and he was like, "Nah, I'm just gonna stick this." Thanks to the gold armor. That's how good it is. And all of a sudden, he's at max HP. Like that's how good it is. But Evo in general is very, very strong. You don't see it as much in pubs and maybe ranked, but in competitive play, it definitely takes the forefront. When I usually coach whatever team I'm coaching, because I'm kind of all over the place at the moment, I usually tell people if you don't have an Evo armor near the point that you want to like take, like say you find a building but there's no Evo in there,
right?
I usually tell them if the rotation isn't crazy risky, if you have any Evo armor option and you only have like a blue or worse, take the Evo. Especially now with the recent buffs, it's so easy to level. Slap a charge rifle on the guy with the Evo, and that thing will be red in no time. Like the charge rifle is so good with it.
Yeah, and that combination too, you may be seeing, why are we seeing so many charge rifles? Why have we seen that kind of resurgence of a weapon that got nerfed a lot and then really was out of play for a while and now has kind of slowly become back relevant and now very relevant? The Evo Shield has a big part of it, and Hotzig kind of detailed for us why that ended up being so important in these games. So still 2 Evo Shields for AHG Gaming. Weren't able to finish that off. The Gold Shield helps Alliance to secure a higher position. But just so many little moments in that game that I found so fascinating as well. Game 3 coming up very, very soon. SJP2 now on the map. Nasky Strafendell with some strong counterpoints as well, continuing to perform each game. Is this looking like kind of their tournament to lose if they keep this up?
I mean, if they keep this up, I think they'll be A-okay. That's the hardest thing to do sometimes for a lot of teams once you already have a big lead. Most teams are well aware that they should be playing a little bit more passive. But sometimes, you're like, oh man, our loot kind of stinks. This fight that's happening in front of us, not a bad idea maybe to take part in. But they seem like they exercised a lot of restraint in that last game. I saw them, the observers panned them a couple times, and they were definitely, they weren't taking any crazy risks. They were just kind of holding their ground, making sure no one messes with them. And that's all they need to do. Anyone can still drop like I said, like a 30, 25, 30-point game. But as long as they keep putting up 9, 10 points each game, which isn't terribly hard to do, they'll be just fine. It's definitely looking like it could be theirs.
All right, well, we'll find out in Game 3 as we get ready to send it back to your casters. Let's get into it.
Rain Day, Hot Tech. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Fallout and Onset back here, getting ready for game number 3. It's going to be a great one here, Onset, as we've had a crazy start to game 1 and 2. Nasky, Strafe, and Dell currently sitting in a first-place spot. SGP2 in second place. Teams that we would necessarily expect to be in the position that they're in there, Onset.
No, I agree, but like I said before we got underway here in the finals, expect the unexpected in Europe. You never know who's going to put in a big performance in the finals, who's going to pick up the biggest game in the finals to potentially push them towards the win. But although we've kind of been focusing on the guys who are in first, second, third place, and quite rightly so, I just want to quickly mention 6th and 7th place are the two most consistent teams for me. Alliance and Gamers Origin. We talk about these guys a lot because of consistency. They've placed themselves very, very well within the pack so far. One big kill game, along with the placement that they've had already, they could shoot up the leaderboard, and I think these two might be battling out for that first and second place.
Yeah, that's a great call out. Consistency in top 6 and 7 is great, but you need that big kill performance. You need maybe a top 2, top 3 finish to skyrocket in the leaderboards. We saw Gamers Origin do it in online tournament number 3. To be honest, we saw Alliance do it in online tournament number 2. We'll see what they can do here in number 4. Or will Nasky, Strafe, and Dell and some kind of underdog teams continue to dominate here? It's going to be an interesting one. One team in particular that we're used to seeing perform incredibly well is a team called Weigers. We actually have a chance to jump into a listen-in, some brand new technology for you guys. Let's go ahead and jump into a listen-in with Team Weigers.
I'm like, why am I jump master?
I don't think people is coming Jace here. I think you can go to the... Oh, maybe one team coming to my compound, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, they're landing close at least.
Yeah.
I can't even make the mountain, dude. South. I think they're coming. No, they're not.
They're taking the balloon?
Yeah, I'm gonna land here. We might get a kill. I got a fucking PK, dude.
A PK?
Yeah, I'm taking it down. I was like, maybe I get a fucking longbow, and get the kill. But...
You think it's a marker, this one? Kinda hard.
And there you have it, some insights into Team Weigers as they're dropping. One thing you noticed, obviously, in gameplay, rather than going for loot, going straight for the Pathfinder beacon and an opportunity to figure out where that next ring is going to be. That puts them in a good spot for an early rotation here. You got to think, actually, I'm going to have a little bit of caster's luck, as Team Weigers could be pretty well positioned to get an early game rotation here on set.
Yeah, completely agree with you. They managed to get the beacon. And the interesting thing with comms here that I want to kind of just break down a little bit more for people who may be looking to improve their game and looking to add that little bit of extra spice to their team is there was a possibility there that there might have been a solo who was trying to take that building as well. You heard the comms between them and they were thinking, can we challenge this solo? Can we send a couple of people to this building and just get an easy kill point on the board? That might seem like a really small thing. However, we've seen how close this European lobby is. One kill point, if you can pick that up early game, not only gets that point on the board for you, but also severely damages the team who could potentially be alongside you on the leaderboards.
Yeah, that's spot on. Sometimes early aggression does pay off. We saw it with Red Reserve in game number 1. We've seen it a lot with a lot of our North American teams who like to play aggressive and some of our European teams who like to play early on aggressive as well. But instead, they recognize, hey, it's not worth our lives. If it's an easy pick, yes. But if it's not worth your lives, then don't make that play unnecessarily. Speaking of a team with aggression, this is the squad, Quarantine Boy, a.k.a. G-Dolphin, one of the fan favorites that we're used to see playing very aggressive early on and kind of a wild card in this tournament. They could really shake things up with their aggression and with this squad.
Yeah, I agree. Aggression, it's paid off for a few teams so far, especially in the early game. It's been you know, how do you quell that aggression towards the mid game, towards the end game? Sometimes the adrenaline gets pumping. You want to take as many fights as possible. But like we say a lot of the time when we're watching competitive Apex Legends, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And you need to take your time. You need to make sure you have that composure. But just wanted to talk about the beacon as well that we did see early on. You are going to see a ring pull towards Sorting Factory, towards sort of the western center of the map, maybe just outside of the west side, of Sorting Factory. So look for a lot of teams to be moving towards Sorting Factory and looking to lock down some real estate.
Yep, you see that happening right now with Triumph as they're working over towards Harvester, straight to Sorting Factory. They, of course, also have a Pathfinder in their squad, and I believe do have the intel as to where that ring is going to be. Yes, they do. So Harvester, Sorting Factory type of finish. We saw this, I believe, in Game 3 or 4 of Online Tournament number 3, and the importance of getting the Sorting Factory earlier, getting in a spot that you feel comfortable with. For Triumph, it's going to be up top towards Harvester right now. As they get a little high ground, they have an opportunity to poke people that are rotating through some choke points from that high ground. Of course, they do have a Watson to their name, as does every single team, with how strong of a legend Watson is, to put some fences up to make sure they don't get pushed, and to also regenerate shields with the Watson ultimate, avoid any defensive bombardment or grenades that can be thrown in them. So Triumph getting positioned pretty well. We saw the same thing from Samsung as well, as they're already positioned over towards Sorting Factory. Meanwhile, hopping on board with Cooler right now, they're going to pick themselves a spot right in the bottom left corner of Sorting Factory that they feel comfortable with on one of these water coolers.
Yeah, I love this dome building as well for this particular ring. Reason being, not only are you set up in a great position as far as, you know, the actual ring is concerned, if it does pull away from you, you're going to be the first team out of Sorting Factory to be able to get a new position on the map. Everyone else who's taken some building or some land, a place to set up in Sorting Factory that's to the east of them is going to have to rotate behind them, which means they're going to have an opportunity to get a prime position as that ring does move in.
Yeah, that's a good call out. Currently taking a quick analysis of the game and where we're at. 19 squads remain, so I didn't see which squad it was, but one squad did get eliminated. It was not Nasky, Strafe, and Dell, who are currently sitting at kind of the top left of Sorting Factory in the first house of the 3-house kind of row, and it looks like it was actually Nasky, Strafe, and Dell that may have picked up those kills, so trying to cement themselves in an even better position in their first place spot. Samsung and Nisa getting shot by Katie of Team Outsiders, as it looks like that positioning that Samsung was trying to hit on a rotation may have not paid off just yet, as one is knocked.
Yeah, one does get knocked, but that's not going to be the end of the world. I haven't seen the finish come in, but there it is. The finish does actually come in. So Samsung do lose a player, which is not what you want to do early game. That's just going to make, you know, the uphill battle even tougher. But at the moment, I just want to talk about kind of the mid game in Apex Legends. A lot of people will be watching thinking, you know, players aren't fighting. They're just sitting about at the moment. This, for me, is arguably the most important part of competitive Apex. This is where your decisions that are going to essentially map out the rest of your game, your final position, where you are going to take your fights happen. This is where the communications between the members of the team are vital. This is where knowledge of rotations is vital. And this is where knowledge of where potential end circles is so important as well. If you don't have that and you're not having these conversations right now, you're going to find yourself so far behind in the game.
Yeah, that's a good point. And actually, that's what separates some of the top teams and lesser teams. You know, you see TSM, one of the best mid-game teams in terms of their early rotations. And that's really, in a nutshell, why Pathfinder is so important. A lot of people think his mobility, his zipline, yeah, that's great. But ultimately, his beacon, his ability to find the late-game circle or ring for any kind of newer players, hit that beacon early on. Don't forget to do that, because that's so crucial for your team to get that early rotation. And that's why that mid-game is so important. But to challenge you a little bit on set, I mean, mid-game is crucial. Yes, it's good to get positioning. If you don't get that positioning, it puts you in a bad spot for late game. But you have teams that play so incredibly well in the late game and know how to position themselves perfectly. You know, the clutch moments of the late game is what I live for in Apex, but you know, it's easy to argue both sides, mid game versus late game. What's more important?
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of it comes down to composition as well. If you're seeing teams who are running that Gibraltar, you have the option to rotate in late, right? You have that artificial cover in the bubble, and you can play Edge of Circle. You can take your time a little bit more. And I still think it's maybe a less consistent way to play the game as far as placement is concerned. However, playing Edge of Circle with that Gibraltar, with the arm shield as well, you're going to have a little bit of an advantage in fights. So you've got a little bit extra HP to work with. So although you might be sacrificing some placement points and early rotation, you can make that up in kill points as well.
Yeah, that's a great call. And of course, as we're talking about the kind of late game, people that kind of hug the edge of the ring, we're going to switch over to SGAP2, our number 2 team right now, playing with the Gibraltar and showcasing how that ring or edge circle type of game works as well. But again, it comes down to your team comp. B100, same exact thing. So some good work by our observers here to kind of give a prime example of understand your team comp, KYP, know your personnel is a common term used in esports, and based on your team comp, adjust your play style. If you're playing with the Pathfinder, you can get that early knowledge, rotate early, get in a good position, but if you're playing with the Gibraltar, don't be afraid to play the edge and try and play for kills, and use that artificial cover from the dome shield from Gibraltar to make rotations.
So I'm going to see a little bit of posturing for position on the map at the moment, and as you see, no Pathfinder on this team B100, so they're going to be kind of playing off of some other teams, maybe looking for teams who are running that Pathfinder and trying to shadow them into the circle, because they're going to be the players who have the advanced knowledge of where that rotation is going to be, where that next circle is going to be. So that's always an option, and also popping the Evo shield on your Gibraltar is something that I always love. You have that extra HP, like I mentioned on the arm shield. Hodzik mentioned it as well. We've all talked about the changes to the Evo shield and how much easier it is in order to increase those levels on it. So put it on your Gibraltar, get those shots in, stay alive, take your time, get that shield up.
Exactly right. Gibraltar does have the ability to kind of peek earlier on, thanks to the additional shield armor he does get with his passive. As, of course, as I say that, he's going to try and go for some shots and get tagged up a bit here. They're currently gatekeeping, I think it's SJP2, that was rotating right behind them. So we have a Gibraltar team comp versus a Gibraltar team comp with B100 versus SJP2. And a fight is undoubtedly going to break out here, as neither team is in the next ring, as the ring is now closing. Minute 30 left in that, as a good first shot's going to come through with the Peacekeeper from free. Can he connect for the second? Looks like his teammates can do the work instead. Chases that Wraith, goes for a second, going to connect for some great damage, is free, but finally gets tagged up. Now it's going to be up to his teammates to close this one out when the dust settles. It looks like the B100 squad will come out on top with an elimination and team wipe over SJP2, our second place team in this one. Huge kills coming in from B100.
Yeah, huge kills, and that's going to have a huge impact on the leaderboard as well. These guys were holding down one of the top spots, SJP2, after that win in the last game. So B100, I was looking across their weaponry as that bubble fight was about to break out, as the engagement was to happen around that building. I just saw Peacekeepers left, right, and center. So Peacekeepers in that position, fantastic for them. They're more than happy to take that fight with that up-close weaponry.
Yep, especially because they got the slight advantage and slight tick on rotating early, and they kind of were able to gatekeep and wait for the SJP2 squad to push them. When you're on the defensive, especially with the Gibraltar on your team, you're able to get some early shots in, catch them off guard. But ultimately, it just came down to hitting shots with that Peacekeeper, like you said on set. Freed with some brilliant shots with that PK, connecting for 110, and then finishing the Wraith as the Wraith did into the Void out or Q out of that fight. Now we're jumping on board with Red Reserve, a team we watched in Game 1 play incredibly aggressive early on. Now they're currently posted up in Harvester, playing with the Gibraltar, using that ultimate of the Watson to gain some shield back. They noticed in their team, though, it looks like they want the fight. Yes, they do. They see red, and they are flying right now, regaining control of Middle Harvester.
Yeah, this is what we saw from them, like you mentioned, John, in the first game that we had the opportunity to watch Red Reserve. They wanted to take fights if they thought that they had an advantageous position. But one position they do have that's advantageous at the moment is this position within Harvester. If we see this ring pull, unfortunately, as we can see now on the Pathfinder beacon, it's not going to pull. But if that was going to pull towards Harvester and we didn't have that information, they would be in a prime position. But now, as you can see, they're going to have to relocate towards Sorting Factory, towards the higher ground to the west of the marshy area belowhand. So they've got some work to do here, and they're going to have to make a pretty quick rotation.
That is true. And while you're talking about some teams at Harvester in the west, look at this. G-Dolphin and co are rotating on the far east side of the map, and I don't know if they have some intel or what, but they recognize that they have a rotation for free. No one's on that side of the map, so they're just going to swing all the way to the bottom southeast of the ring and try to find some real estate or location to do exactly that. Meanwhile, on board with Weigers, are ready positioned, again, with that Pathfinder in Sorting Factory. They're in the next ring. They're in a good position here, but there's at least 4 or 5 teams around them already set up as well.
Yeah, this is where I think every single team is going to be crossing their fingers and looking to the heavens that they get that pull, because there's teams who are set up at the moment within Sorting Factory, and they're kind of hoping that it's going to pull towards them. But there's teams also that are a little bit more northern on the map who might be thinking, are we going to get the pull here? Because this next pull is so vital to the game, because if it pulls to the west of the map, every single team who is in Sorting Factory is going to have to move up. That means engagements, that means fights, and that means potential win or loss scenarios for these teams,
which we love to see. I know every viewer watching right now, same thing. Those edge circle kind of ring engagements that drop the teams from 18 to 10 and the blink of an eye are fun to watch for sure, as we're currently continuing this storyline with B100 and teams that play the edge. You know, usually those teams will end up in some sort of fight and rotation. We're currently on a choke point right now, so they're just trying to scout out to see if they can find any other teams, much like they did with SJP2. Not going to find anyone over there just yet, but smart decision just to peek and check, as they now know that's clear. They're going to rotate back to their side of the map.
Yeah, and just a note on B100, this isn't a team that particularly scrims either. So this is kind of a team that has been playing together, obviously grinding ranked, but they haven't been involved in a lot of competitive scrims. So for them to be performing at such a higher level within this final, it speaks volumes about them. And this could certainly be a team to watch should they put in a big performance today.
Yeah, that's a good call. Currently, B100 is sitting in last place right now in the overall point standings, but they did pick up 3 kills right there. They're looking to pop off here. But, that's a slight advantage they have. If you're not scrimming, you're not playing against a lot of teams. Other teams certainly know how you play. You can catch some people off guard. They're one of those teams that shake up the meta and shake up the landing spots quite a bit when they make it to the finals. And they've made it to the finals a few times now. I know in watching them. So we'll see what they can do on this rotation here. They're going to be in ring right now. Meanwhile, jumping on board with a team that is familiar to the scrim side of the world, it's Samsung. Samsung Morningstar is currently in one of the trailers and positioned quite towards center circle in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I was going to say this is a great position, but then unfortunately we mentioned the first player to go down in the entire fight, in the entire game I should say, was Nissa on Samsung. So the problem with that, he's their Watson player. So it's all great to be in a great position center map, but if you don't have that Watson generator to take those grenades, to get those fences up, it's going to be a straight fight. And to be honest with you, with their positioning, I can't see Samsung surviving too much unless they pull out something miraculous when that ring closes.
That's a good call out. Typically you'll know there's no Watson there because you don't see fences. So as soon as you see no fences, you let it rip with grenades. And especially with those 2 windows, they're quite vulnerable with those grenades. It looks like a push is actually going to happen. Meanwhile, Triumph can go, but good shots across map, trying to just poke and be annoying. So that actually might be Samsung's best friend because they're putting so much damage into the aggressive team. As I say that, Lemix can go down, all up to Casper. Let's see what Casper can do right now in this situation. Casper is not in the best position.
Yeah, and I think as soon as teams realized that they didn't have a Watson in that position, that they were going to push. They realized how important that position is, and now we're going to jump on board with Ad Hoc Gaming as Zippeth is trying his best to just push some players back with the Scout, and it looks like this is the other position that they like to play. Again, edge of circle here for AHG, taking the high ground side of the map though, so they're in a pretty good spot here.
Yeah, AHG with the addition of Kuya from Kababrila, replacing Zerifer from this squad in the last tournament. We all know Kababrila performed very well in online tournament 2 and 3, a very high skill, high mechanical skill team, and a lot of that was thanks to Kuya. So a great pickup for Ad Hoc Gaming, and they're doing solid so far in this tournament. Currently sitting in top 10 and 9th place with 13 points, but keep in mind there's only like 4 or 5 points that separate all the way up to 2nd place with SJP2 at 18. They're already out. So one pop-off game from Ad Hoc Gaming, or anyone can to make the difference here. And as I say that, speaking of a pop-off, Nasky, Strafe, and Dell getting pushed from a team on the low ground. They're going to hold that off and withstand, at least for now. Now without casualty, as it looks like Nasky was tagged up a bit. Navi goes down.
A few players dropping now, as we would expect. We're seeing that ring move, and this is what I meant. Every single team that was set up in Sorting Factory and hoping that it would pull towards them, well, you've got to move, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to make your way towards that zone now. And I want to talk about how vital that portal into that truck was from Matafe. Now they have, in my opinion, the prime position on the map. They have the Watson in there as well. They have the gen down. This could be a really big game here for Ad Hoc Gaming if they can just close out these last moments.
Yeah, it's a great call out. And look at that. Look at the ring. Of the ring, there's maybe 3 buildings, all open lands. There's not going to be a lot of cover. This is where Gibraltar really shines in late games with the artificial cover, with the bubble, and then, of course, with defensive bombardment. When the ring is so small, you can do a lot of damage and force teams into your hand. So we'll see how the Gibraltar plays an effect here. As I say that, looks like the last member, Caspier of Samsung, gets taken out on board of 9 so he's going to get revived back to full 125 Evo shield, fully leveled up. Claws and Faizu with some solid shield as well. Navi in a pretty decent position here with their backs against the wall, and that's actually a benefit now because any team that's going to drop is going to have to drop in front of them, minus that zip line right next to them.
Yeah, they're going to have to drop on them. They're going to be dropping into a lot of Watson fences as well, and those interception pylons are going to make it a pretty difficult position to be in. Certainly not one that I wouldn't want to find myself in if I was involved in this game. So, yeah, Na'Vi set up in a pretty good position here. You can see they've got zone, they've got cover above them, they've got the Watson ult down as well to stop any grenades that are going to fall in. Na'Vi in a fantastic position, but Alliance, the team that I mentioned, again, making it towards the end game, making it towards the final circle, but with 16 squads remaining, this could be an opportunity for them to maybe push towards the top of the leaderboards.
Currently on board with Triumph, currently sitting on top of one of the more favorable rocks, but one member is tagged up. That's going to be Matey. Some way, somehow, using some shield cells, one by one, as it looks like they're out of shield batteries. They've been taking a lot of damage throughout. That's what that early game or mid-game poke will do. Oxbow taking up Hyarka of Red Reserve. And back to Ad Hoc Gaming, who we mentioned earlier, in a great position in this trailer, and that's going to actually stay true here, as they're able to put great shots on Na'Vi cross-map. This is the team we mentioned having their backs against the wall was good, but with cover to their advantage, Zippeth & Co. of AHG can put some massive damage into Alliance and Na'Vi.
Yeah, and the big thing here that Zipper's doing, he's making sure he's destroying generators. That means other teams can get naded out. That encourages other teams to push other teams because they see the generator has been taken down. They don't have the regenerative ability on the shield. They don't have those grenades that are going to get eaten up. So even though they're not picking up KP here, what they are doing is denying so many teams the ability to push in.
Yeah, it's crucial now. As the final ring location is going to be revealed, it is Myth, one of our consistent squads with the addition of Oxbow now that we are on screen with in a good position. They actually have complete control of almost all the cover here. Look how spread out they are, which is a good thing in this scenario, and they're easily able to get to each other if they want to. Fights going on over with NWR on the other side of the map as teams are recognizing they're going to have to rotate here soon. Using the portal to get away momentarily, trying to get right back into the fight is Noises. And as these teams are rotating from Sorting Factory, we know there were at least 3 or 4 teams up there on the rotation. It looks like 1 or 2 only will survive. Gamers Origin being one of them, picking up some kills on Nasty Strafe and Dell.
Yeah, Gamers Origin Alliance, they were the 2 teams that I mentioned before this game. If they have a pop-off game, or even just for Europe, I would call it a pop-off game as far as kill points are concerned, 6, 7 kill points, that they could be the 2 teams that are in contention, I should say, before the end of this game. But we're seeing big, massive shots coming in left, right, and center here from NWR, and that is going to be a clean wipe. Kill points on the board for them, and they are going to move on in the game.
Huge play from Noises, but another team is going to rotate through on the third party. And Noises, who just did so much work, is going to get caught off guard. It looks like his teammate InStyle is the last remaining. He's in a world of hurt. He gets taken out as well. And just like that, NWR, who made such a huge play, is going to get third partied and taken out early on. Smart play right there. I think it was from Thex and team name, aka G-Dolphin Squad, that rotates in late. And they're going to end up on top of the top side high ground. Geo Umpe is going to get taken out early as well. Here comes rotation.
Oh, I'm not sure if he went to drop there or if he was just trying to be aggressive. The zone obviously is coming in, but he just dropped into a world of hurt. And now we're just going to see battles going down on the edge of zone consistently. Gamers Origin in all sorts of problems here, and they will be taken down.
Yeah, no, that rotation is just tough. They waited till the last second, and again, we mentioned earlier, but it's a wide open no man's land in this final ring. Not only this final ring, but the last 2 rings at that. Kuya picking up an elimination as well on the top right of your screen. So it looks like Myth continues to be well positioned in this one. With the addition of Kuya to this AHG squad, also with a good rotation, they're still alive. I did see a member of Nasty Strafe and Dell was ratting and alive as well. 6 squads remaining in this one, but there might be a few rats or solo players still trying to hide and survive towards that top 3, top 4 finish.
Yeah, Myth can be the last team to engage here if they want to. They can play towards end circle. They're the last team, essentially, with any natural cover as far as building is concerned. And the thing is here, for them, they need to try and pick up free KP because teams are going to be rotating in weak. They're going to be having to rotate having just had a fight. This is free potential points if they want to poke out and put those shots in. They can also back up, take their time to use the Watson Gen to get those shields back as well. So they're in a prime position to potentially win this game.
Yep, no one can possibly come behind them. And like you said, they could be the last one to rotate if they do want to. Dead Inside, Stanny and Co. also alive in this one. And Nasty Strafe and Dell, we know, is one team that was alive. Gamers Origin did get eliminated moments ago. Myth, of course, on screen right now. So those are at least a few of the teams that are still open. Looks like Cooler is going to get taken out by the ring that is signed. Looks like one member of Alliance still up as well. So we mentioned they need to go big with a top finish in this late game. And Hockey's just wants to try and survive. We saw the feature profile on him earlier. It was brilliant. Former member of the army in his country. He's at leadership, obviously, so is true. We'll see what he can do now with this back against the wall. Last member alive for a squad. Here comes rotation from Myth.
It's going to be a big G.I. Joe moment for him, though, if he wants to get some big points on the board for his team. Although he did find a cheeky little rat spot to maybe just wait for these teams to engage and push up. But now this is where the action really starts to pip up. We're seeing teams engaging left, right, and center. It looks like HG are going to be losing players. Badoli goes down as well. 4 squads remaining now, John.
Here it is. It looks like Myth spots one squad, recognizes let's take this fight on this one team as we see a kill leader erupt as well. 3 squads remain. It looks like 3 members from Stanny and Co., which is Dead Inside, going up against 3 members of Myth. The last rat's going to get taken out. It's Matafe. 3 versus 3 fight to close this one out between these 2 teams. It looks like they're just going to be trading shots and a bit of a standoff here on set.
Yeah, and you can see it because of the natural cover. That rock is kind of the dividing line between the 2 teams. But here we go. The push is now coming in, John.
Great shots being put in from Stanny, the last member alive. He can use his teammate's shield to his advantage. Trying to pop that shield battery. Yes, he will. It's a 1 versus 1. Amaz from Myth going up against Stanny, and the use of his teammate's shield is so crucial here. As Amaz, with only 2 shields left to his name, is going to push with an R99. He gets taken out. Just like that, Stanny is going to clutch up when it matters the most in a 1 versus 1. Dead Inside takes our first place victory here in this one.
Yeah, amazing finish to that game. I thought for a second, you know, you've got the gold shield. Although you've done damage, pop a cell. Give yourself that extra second. You can get that little extra bit of armor to maybe have won that fight. Maybe that's a fight he would have wanted back. But to keep composure in those 1v1 situations, we know how hectic comms get, right? We know how hectic endgames get. Adrenaline's pumping in your veins, but to come out with a 1v1 win and get the plaudits of your teammates is the best feeling in the world. So a huge congratulations, a huge win on the board.
Yeah, massive plays from Stanny. You're right. I mean, that was a 1v1, and Stanny actually rotated and kind of gave you a chance to reset the fight. So I don't know if, I think it was a Maz from Myth, was out of shields or what the scenario was in that situation, but opting to push with the R99 wide right, opting for aggression, it ended up costing him as Stanny did come out with the fight and with the win. These have been some of the most entertaining late games or end games. We've seen a 1v2 clutch. We just saw a 1v1 clutch. Does not get better than this onset.
No, absolutely. We love end games in Apex Legends. That's what we live for. It's all about the posturing for those final moments that give us the excitement that we absolutely love. And yeah, 1v1 seems to be the special on the menu today, John. And yeah, I'm enjoying every moment of it.
Yeah, as opposed to these absolutely insane or manic late games where there's like 40 people live in the ring. We get an intense 1v1. I will take that. I'm a big fan of that as a caster. I hope you guys are all enjoying it as well. Thank you all so much for tuning in and supporting the growth of competitive Apex. And man, what a day it's been. The content has proved true. And Hodzic said it earlier, but Apex, unlike any other BR, one of the most aggressive BRs in a lot of early game fights that you see early on. A lot of early game aggression. And it's showed true in a lot of these games. Of course, towards the late game, which we're really only ending up with one or two teams or players alive. In the end right there, it was Stanny from Dead Inside going up against Amaz from Myth. A big performance for Myth. The squad that we keep talking about has been the only team in Europe to qualify for every single online tournament. Even teams like Gambit, Alliance, who have won online tournaments, have failed to do so in an online tournament after that. Myth is playing consistently. A second place finish from them puts them in a good spot. I'm interested to see how that shakes up the leaderboards here on set.
Yeah, I agree. And not only was it a second place finish, but we saw that kill leader pop up on one of their players as well. So that means that they've got multiple kill points on the board as well. So we were talking about and listening into, you know, Bravo and Jameson talking about how vital, especially in Europe, having one game where you put up a big kill point performance, that could be the difference between coming in 8th to 1st or 2nd. So the fact that they've just managed to put that together and that second place finish with so many KP, if they can get a solid finish in these in the forthcoming games, then they're going to have a real opportunity here to not only say we're the team that qualified for every single final, but you know, we've won one as well.
Yeah, that's a good call out. Before there, in case you're wondering, Dead Inside was in 10th place with 11 points, but keep in mind, only 7 points separated them from the number 2 team with 18 points. They're, of course, behind Nasky, Strafe, and Dell with 27 points. So at least 7 or 8 kills right there in a first place finish is going to help Dead Inside skyrocket, I think, into a top 2 or top 3 finish. And we talked about that point with Bravo and Jamerson around a lot of our top teams. You know, where's Alliance's top 3 finish in high kill game? Maybe Gamers Origin. Instead, it's been a lot of our kind of lesser discussed, lesser known teams that have really popped off in the kills category and placement. Nasky, Strafe, Dell, Dead Inside picking up a win on their end. So a good start so far from our kind of free agent or our unsigned teams that are really trying to make a name for themselves. And that goes to show how great this format is, this online tournament format. Any of you watching at home could sign up for an online tournament, can qualify for the finals. And we're seeing that on the EU side of things. I'm really interested to see on North American side. I know we're going to be seeing the same exact thing as well. So things are getting shaken up in quite a significant way right now. An awesome game number 3. We have 2 games left in this one. But before we jump to game 4, we got to throw it back to our analysts. It's Hodzic and Rain Day to break down the action.
All right, thank you so much, fellas. Great cast on air. And, of course, everybody's been killing it, production and all the crew. Of course, we've got to say a big shout-out to everybody involved. Just takes a lot, especially the players as well. A lot of time goes into getting these tournaments right, but we've got a great opportunity to talk about some fantastic finishes in Apex Legends Competitive. And Hodzic, man, that one was one of the more exciting ones as well. It seems like Onset said, on the menu is the special 1v1s. And, again, we saw a very tight-knit finish between these two teams going back at it. Gold shield, purple shield. It ended up being the purple shield actually taking the win.
Yeah, I believe the Wraithon Myth with the gold, I forget the name of it at this
Amaz,
second.
I believe.
Amaz. I believe he had the opportunity to heal, but I think he wanted to capitalize on the damage that he did to him. So he tried to do a little bit of cheeky push. It's tough. I mean, there's a lot of emotions, a lot of adrenaline in these late game circles. You might not be playing always your best game or have the best judge of the situation. Right. It's a lot easier for us to just sit here and watch it happen. But you know those players, their heart rates are probably at like 200 beats per minute.
Oh my God. Yeah, if they had Albreleli's, heart rate monitor on stream, I'm sure it would just be, taking up the entire image right there. That thing must have been an absolute difficulty to manage, especially when your team is watching you fight that 1v1. Both players on both teams actually still looking, and only a few participating, actually, and that was one of the big differences between why I believe Dead Inside was able to capitalize on this. A nice rotation as well, but just a lot of blocking from his teammates, and of course the R99 tracking at the very end. It was a great performance between these two teams who even last week have been fighting one another. Myth coming in 44 with 44 points, coming in 6th. Dead Inside coming in 7th with 39 points. And Ad Hoc Gaming, who was the 3rd alive there, Matafe dying before that 1v1 took place, was tied with Myth at 44, tied for 5th and 6th. So these teams, even in this final circle and last week, seem to be very close and contested as far as skill, as far as the way that they're playing the game. It seemed to be Dead Inside who actually would take the win this time, though. So really good performance from them, and I think moving forward into Game 4 brings up a lot of discussion. How much will they move up? You and I were kind of guessing this could put them in the conversation of top 5, maybe top 3, if things go well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was saying. It's kind of like, as long as Nasky's team, which was the only team that had really a sizable lead at the top, as long as they keep putting up points, they'll be good. I believe they went out 8th there, and I'm not sure how many kills they had. So at least they're putting up some points. It might not prove to be enough, but that's what I was saying. I mean, it's anyone's game. Dead Inside was only, 16 points off first, which you just need one decent win. And look, they got 21 in that one game right there. It's really anyone's game at this point. The top 10 is so close.
Nasky, Strafedell, got to keep track of our leaders as well. They're taking 4 points off of that, which is better than a sharp stick in the eye, as my mom always says. I think they'll be happy to at least be moving positively. Ad Hoc Gaming finally get a really strong performance with strong points as well. That's 14. That's going to help them stay involved. Team name, which you ended up seeing, that was where we're seeing G Dolphin today playing as well under Quarantine Boy, I still believe, getting 4th. And X-Crow Crowd with that fantastic ending as well. Part of that whole dynamic that we saw with SJP2 ended up being 7 points to their name. But it's really about Myth. It's really about Dead Inside here, who clean it up with 10 kills and 9 kills respectively, and 19 and 21 points, which is going to put them at number 1 and number 2 in the tournament. Nasky, Strafedell with those 4 points, jump up above Ad Hoc Gaming, and X-Crow Crowd stays solid in the 5th position. But wow, Dead Inside and Myth after that take the top 2 spots so far after Game 3.
Yeah, I mean, just look at that leaderboard. The top 6 is a 10-point difference, tie between 1st and 2nd. It's like I said, that's the kind of the narrative behind like the European region for the most part. It really is anyone's game. It's crazy how I think Europe as like a region in terms of Apex has so many really, really good teams. I do think, for example, like the North American region, I think has a lot of really like the teams at the top are like really good. And then they're kind of a lot better than the teams like below them. But in Europe, the skill is a lot more, I feel, widespread. And you're seeing that here. I mean, just look how close those standings are. It's seriously anyone's game.
It's actually really interesting to consider that Europe and North America play the game differently and are achieving different results in their lobbies. And you're not seeing these kind of, it's over by basically round 4 and it's only between 2 teams, where you might see that in North America, where it's Liquid and it's TSM at, looking at last week, who are really in contest to maybe take the spot and no one else is really in the conversation. You look at right here, we do have a very contested Game 4 and Game 5 that will be deciding whether these teams win the first place prize, get that $7,100, or it ends up being lower and lower. But overall, really strong performances from them. I want to talk a little bit about some of these moments throughout the game as we take a look at the highlights that have kind of come through in game number 3 of the ALGS Online number 4 for Europe. But I want to mention, what have you been seeing weapon-wise? I've seen a ton of Havoc with Rangers. I've seen, obviously, a ton of Evo shields. But I've also seen a lot of EVA 8s. Can you talk about that?
That's a surprise. I mean, I'm not in terms of like me thinking the weapon's not that great. I actually think it's so slept on. But I know that a lot of the times, like maybe some of the things I think in terms of weapon balance, a lot of the other pros don't think so. I know there are some pros that love the EVA, but it's a very slept on weapon. I just think it's kind of awkward to use. But the amount of damage, assuming you put out like a max damage shot on every single shot, the amount of damage you can do is crazy. I think it's a really good weapon for like a Watson, for example, someone who's technically on paper supposed to be like the third person into the fight. You know, you push a team that is fighting like your Wraith or your Jibby, and then you're kind of just in the background, just pumping out Eva shots with a purple bolt too. It's such a deadly weapon. And it's very choke friendly in terms of, you know, if you miss Peacekeeper shots, you have like another second until your next one. That's a lot of downtime. That's very easy for them to trade free damage on you, and then you get nothing out of it. So I think it's a really, really slept on weapon, and I'm very surprised that a lot of the players are using it, but I'm glad that they're picking up on how strong it actually is.
I mean, not everybody can hit those 1v2s. Not everyone can pull a Stanny or, you know, an Amaz and really carry those moments in the final seconds. You may need to, you know, whiff a few shots if you're like us. But, of course, you're not like us. You're watching this game. You're learning from some pro analysts here like Hot Six. So thank you, everybody, for being involved. We are going to get straight into Game 4. Make sure you follow @PlayApex for our socials to stay tuned with everything going on at ALGS and all of our announcements. But without further ado, let's hop into it, guys. Game 4 coming up. Let's see who takes first place after this one. Send it to your casters.
Hey, thanks so much, Rain Day. Bravo and Jamerson here, ready to call the action once again. And Jamerson, we got a new top 3 here. It's kind of a repeat of the last tournament because Nasky Strafe Dell, as they led after 2 games, they now find themselves in 3rd, and now it's Dead Inside and Myth all knotted up in those 1-2 spots.
Yeah, one huge thing we really do have to point out is how similar the point distribution is looking like so far to Online Tournament 3, where amongst the top 4, there was only a split of about 6 points this time around. Amongst our top 5 after 3 games, there's only a split of 5, and so it's still very competitive amongst the top 4.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and get ready to jump into game number 4, ladies and gentlemen, here at the Apex Legends Global Series. This is Online Tournament number 4, game number 4. Only 2 left in the European Finals as we're going to get ready to drop into this match in just a moment. Might even have some more team comms coming in just a moment. We'll see if that is the case, but getting ready to jump into the map now. And of course, who else but to start things off with who we just saw in a fantastic performance. It's Stanny and Dead Inside.
One contested again, so
Dude, imagine if I fall down the map now.
all 3 was falling. Oh my god, could you imagine? Oh no, no, no. Where's Train? East Fragment.
I have a triple take and an Evo.
All right, and great to hear the GSD side, the Dead Inside squad off of the drop. Of course, lots of teams still to look for here, Jamerson, and it seems to be the case. Even though we talk about 5 games, consistency is so key. Going into games 4, it always feels like we do have really an open-ended ending of these tournaments because I think this might even be the strongest case. We're finally starting to see some teams start to pull up a little bit more high kill wins. You and I were just talking about Dead Inside with a 9-kill win there, Myth with a 10-kill second, then Ad Hoc with a 7-kill third. So we're finally starting to see the kills stack a little bit more towards the top 3 finishers.
But yeah, if you really do want to try and close it out, especially with how heated the top 4 are, we have to take a look at North America and how that fared out for Team Liquid to take their victory. They had 2 second-place finishes with 10 kills in a row. That's the kind of scoring you need if you really do want to walk away with a victory here. And that's what they were able to accomplish during their run in the last online tournament. So I'm looking towards other teams to try and find these early game rotation frags, try to find isolated kills on the outside. But again, over here at Refinery, it's going to be Red Reserve running into another team.
Absolutely. Red Reserve, like you said, already finding a little bit of resistance there. As we take a look at Refinery, we see Red Reserve had been dropping Refinery in scrims and actually in scrim notes, which, by the way, shout out to EMEF for all the great notes on what we're seeing in EU scrims. We actually did not have any other teams that were listed as Refinery drops in scrims. So interesting, now they are actually running into the side of team name, and that's your path. That's your Badoli, G-Dolphin, Thex team, and they're kind of on our list as this aggressive team that really great at the game, but of course has not been playing together for a long time. So they're one of the many wild cards in these drops.
They're at the very least at this point 2 out of 4 taking this fight over at Refinery up against Red Reserve. I believe it was in game number 2 where we also saw them fight here, and they were not able to win that out. It was Red Reserve who ended up really bullying them out. And this was a discussion that we had before game number 1 where a lot of teams, of course, game number 1, that's going to set the pace. But it looks like neither team really giving up this spot, and they're going to continue to take this 50-50.
Absolutely, and like we said, several teams, Team Name being one of those teams that is more reactive based on where they're seeing other teams. So surprising to see them take Refinery when it was, it seemed to be a little bit of an established drop for Red Reserves in the past few weeks. Now, as we see teams still all over, of course, we got still 2 teams at Skyhook, your Fisher team, if I recall correctly, typically Ad Hoc Gaming over at Fisher, also teams still at Drill, Train, etc., having to make their long way down to this. We also just got a beacon here, things looking like Lava City in ALGS play, and I would say competitive Apex play period. Very familiar with a lot of these Lava City endings, sometimes ending out in the track, sometimes ending in the back corner. We'll have to see exactly where teams decide to hold up, but the Samsung Morningstars going to be one of your teams that wants to get into these Lava City buildings early.
At the very least, control of the roof is probably what you are looking for here, especially amongst these taller buildings. When the teams are coming in for rotations, if you have those long-range weapons like the Scout that Lemek does have right now, you can try and use that to get some kills, but it looks like the team already has the roof here as we're seeing the rotation now coming out from Weigers. And I actually like the idea of holding out on the outskirts here, especially if you are a Pathfinder team controlling this Pathfinder beacon building here. And so I want to see Weigers hold position for now. They do have a port set up to just try and get some extra items on over from that truck. And so they're going to be able to port over an extra shield for them to use.
Absolutely. Teams here, of course, are going to be very happy to have these Lava City North buildings as well. Some teams going to prefer that back corner if they can get there. I believe Hotzik calls it the back pocket principle.
I believe it's the DPP. The deep
it is the DPP. Principle. Sorry, it is the DPP. The deep pocket principle. God, you're so right.
The only way, okay, so like my mnemonic for like remembering that is weird because it's like I think of DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, right? The old days of the Diamond Cutter, and then I just change it up with the extra P, so it's the DPP.
That's fair. I think Hotzik might give it. Hotzik should give me a hard time later.
I'm going to give you a hard time right now.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I deserve it. The DPP, I will not forget it. What we're talking about here, folks, the teams are looking to get into the furthest corner so that their rear is safe, and there's an argument that if you're not sure where to hold or if you can only get an early hold, that you hold the furthest corner of an end circle, and that's going to be, of course, ample opportunities for those in terms of those back corner Lava City buildings. Now, also taking a look at Triumph, they're making a way all the way across east, essentially to head across these tracks to get into this Lava City. But as we saw, areas of Lava City North, Dome, and then all this area, they know they're going to run into some traffic here, so they need to be very careful with how they engage. Keep in mind, as a path team, too, they need to play this pretty carefully.
Yeah, but there's still that kind of effect of just a standoff, right? If you do try to poke a little bit too much or you peek out too much, then all of a sudden you're the one that's getting shot at from another team that's just on the outskirts as well. And so a lot of the times teams are kind of rewarded for taking these bold moves, these bold kind of rotations where...
Yeah. Absolutely. Speaking of a bold zip all the way to top Dome. As well, as we take a look here at the EXE side, still here in this tunnel north of Sorting, and haven't made the move just yet over on in.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. They do see a natty drop over here also, and the remnants of it. They're going to be able to vulture that up, and that's one of the strengths of being able to play as an edge team, right? Maybe on your initial drop you weren't able to get quite the loot that you want, but because you are playing edge, maybe not as many teams rotating in from your side, it's relatively safe for you to slowly walk in and pick up whatever cursory loot that you can find here. As Cooler is going to use that portal. Luckily, he was able to put that down. They'll be able to get the res off, hopefully, but as we swap over to Myth...
my goodness, somehow... As we just saw the Cooler side, the Wraith able to get through, able to loot, and gets down, but able to get back through the port as well. Thought they might be able to loot for just a second on that gold box, and to be honest with the position they had, they certainly had the time to spend that portal on that, but my goodness, fast down. That tells you the state of affairs, Jamerson, in Lava City right now. If you drop for a moment, you are going to get melted from multiple angles.
Yeah, you really do have to be careful here now. Back on board, this time with Outsiders. They are holding the southern side. One trade already going out. They're going to be able to knock one onto Hakas, and that's a huge pickup, taking out that Wraith. We'll see if he does get res. They don't have a bubble for it quite yet.
Yep, need to play this carefully as we take a look. Going to be a moment for them to get some heals off. The outsider side, a team that we saw do very well early on. They were 3rd place after the first game. They dropped to 4th overall after game number 2. So going to be looking to put together a pretty big game number 4. If you're just joining us, folks, welcome to the Apex Legends Global Series Online Tournament number 4. This is game number 4 in the standings so far. Dead Inside and Myth are tied 1st and 2nd at 32. Strafe Dell at 3rd with 31. And Ad Hoc Gaming in 4th right now with 27 points, as we also go ahead to check in board with Rugby and Crew.
Yeah, here we are back with XCC, who's had a pretty decent run so far amongst our first 3 games. Right now, they are the team that's set up. They don't have a Pathfinder, but there were 2 Pathfinder teams around here. Now, if you're not running, if you're a Jibby team, what you can do is just try and shadow other teams that do have a Pathfinder, right? You use that kind of information that you're able to glean from them. And so I like this position for them here, as they're just playing around a beacon right now, and they're waiting to see what the other team motions towards.
Absolutely. They like the Cooler side. Essentially, I think Cooler is actually on double white armor. They got a rotate early. As we take a look exactly, Cooler actually was a skyhook or a sorting drop traditionally. You have to think they probably got their Lava City landing that fast, their Lava City hold, if they had a sorting drop. It would have been very fast for them to get the hold that they got if it was a skyhook drop. Probably more likely that they were at sorting this game. That's gotten them a good hold, but they're one of the few teams, I think, here as well, another example with XCC, that is going to have to play off of white armor because they wanted to get in early. And with the limited amount of buildings and cover that you have in Lava City and Lava City North, can't blame them for rotating early.
EXE going to go ahead and make a play to try and get to the east side of this map here, possibly even just hole up inside this RV right now. And they're in a pretty good spot. Rugby, though, down to 1 HP.
My goodness. Let's see. Able to get this med kit off, perhaps stays back and is able to do it, and they're just going to have to hold up. Like you said, Jaberson, they're going to need to wait for teams to rotate. They're going to look for picks. They're going to hold this as long as they can and make sure that they don't get down unnecessarily.
Already one knock going on over as Sanya, will go down as well. And it's all up to N-Layer here, but he goes down as well. It's Weigers to clean it up.
Yeah, Weiger's able to make that push, and you have to think, was it that first bit of damage, that first poke that came in that really allowed that Weiger's push to come in? And you have to be so careful that even if you're playing on Wraith and you're just holding a building like that in Lava City North, all it takes is the right amount of poke damage to come in to force some heals, and that's exactly what happened. Weigers takes advantage of that, and they do it pretty well, to be honest, because in a game 4, it's a risky play, but I think we're seeing Weigers right now in terms of where they're sitting on the table in 20th, in dead last. So you have to think, for them, it's a great play to just, why not take that chance? They're in game 4 in last place. Those are the kind of plays they need to make if they really want to make a run here in games 4 and 5. But much easier said than done, but they're off to a decent start in game number 4.
Now on board with B100, who are making the rotation to the southern side here. And this is what a lot of teams have been doing kind of in the meta to reaction to how other teams play in their lobbies right now, where teams are favoring what should be the less populated side here. But we're seeing how that kind of thinking leads, that kind of like group thinking leads to the opposite effect that they have. Another team on the opposite end, they're able to throw out that port as, the shield as the nades are raining in on them.
Yeah, let's see what they can do here. Still damage coming in. They're going to be forced and pushed back down the hill just a little bit. Need to play this very carefully, able to get that bat off. Those shots coming in from all sorts of directions, though. So also the Wraith is going to have to queue. They are going to have to try to retreat as fast as they can here to the tunnel.
Looks like they do have a pocket to work with here. To be interesting to see if they actually destroy that Watson trap. Yeah, they do actually just go ahead and clear it. And so the team inside know of their presence here, so they have to be careful. On the other side of the corner, it was actually Alliance who was forcing them off of their loot, and so they're going to be able to recover this. This is going to be really great. And I like that we are seeing a lot more of the Evo shields coming out with that huge buff again. To max it out, 625 damage, that's all you need. Zafes himself only needs 185 damage to be able to get that red shield. They've got a gold on Hawkes. This is everything you really want, especially if you're trying to get that caustic into the late game here. They are going to have to play edge. I want to see if they go for this fight inside the tunnel or if they play a little bit more passively.
Absolutely, and Alliance, a team that needs to put up some big points for these games 4 and 5 as well. We saw in the pregame just what that tournament win meant to Hakkasan team, but right now they are sitting in 10th place with 18 points, so also big performances needed out of them. And of course, right now they're going to have an opportunity to take their time on this push. Minute 30 left before they'll need to even think about moving, but that route into Lava City proper is going to need to be very carefully calculated.
Yeah, currently Alliance tied for 9th with SJP2. I think SJP2 win the tiebreakers, though. And so that 18 points, it's going to be a 14-point difference between them and first place that can easily be made up within 2 games. And they just need one stellar game. They've already got a few kill points here. They need to secure more, though, here in the early game. So we'll see if they can do that.
Absolutely. As you go ahead and take a look now, also still, of course, on the board, the B100 guys still making their push. They're actually pretty far west as well. We're going to keep an eye on them. They still haven't even made their way over to Caves just yet, but certainly another team that we're going to be keeping an eye on.
I'd like to see if possibly Alliance from the roof can throw over a few caustic barrels towards their west. At the very least, try and sneak one in along the path that, if a team has to try and exit from there. Just to be a little bit of a nuisance, but I think now that Alliance have been able to secure a building, if they can move up to the 2nd floor, it'd be a lot easier for them to hold, as there are 3 points of ingress here on the 1st floor. It'd be much easier for them to hold on the 2nd floor. Again, though, here at the northern side, we're seeing Weigers, after they had, of course, taken that team fight win now, they've been able to maintain this position on the building here. I want to see exactly how many teams are currently around them, though. And it looks like it might just be the one that they're facing off against in the other building.
Yep, and just a little bit of a poke battle in between these Lava City buildings, and maybe even more than you would expect to have seen pre-Evo Shield, but you see a few of the players involved in those poke battles, unsurprisingly rocking Evos, and actually there you see Hotzuk made the call that you're also going to see the charge rifle a big part of those poke battles in terms of collecting that Evo damage as well. But like you said, Weigers knows they need to be careful at how they play this right now, making sure they don't fall victim to exactly what happened to them. Of course, we're a bit later in the game, so it's even more unlikely that someone would make a push on one of those Lava City North buildings, given that the other building and anyone around the dome and that middle part of Lava City would also likely engage as well.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that come into why the Evo Shield is so big, and one big thing we didn't really talk about was, of course, the nerf to low profile, where they no longer take leg damage, and it's just full body damage.
We do see a push there, and you see it in the ops feed, actually, is definitely a push happening in that Lava City North building. We'll have to see exactly what might be happening. You do see that in the obs feed in terms of the team pushing in from the eastern building to that western building as well. We'll have to get a recap. Nothing there. You see, actually, AHG picks up the first one. The kills exchanged in the feed in that north building. Got to see what's happening all the way up north. I believe now a 2v2 in those buildings. Now Kuya is going to pick up the next one in the feed as well.
Yeah, that's going to be a very strong position for them, especially if it is AHG coming out on top. Trip now going down, and that should be it. Kuya Paradise does answer back. And so with AHG being able to take that team fight win, they'll have the entire north side of the map basically to themselves. I don't know if anyone's in the 4-story to the northeast there, but that might mean a free rotation for them once they are able to stabilize here. Looks like NWR, though, might try to play Gatekeeper up against them.
Absolutely, and you got to wonder what prompted AHG, what amount of poke damage or scenario prompted them to push all the way from their building. Certainly it was not a matter of timing exactly in terms of the ring movement. So certainly they got an advantage that they knew they could push. We only saw it in the top of the mini-map, but certainly they're going to now hold that down. Now they're actually the ones that are reigning in damage on Darken, and all of NWR. Somehow Darken is able to stay alive there for a moment. He'll be forced to drop down as well, but they're in all sorts of trouble from a few different angles, most specifically that northern angle from the side of Ad Hoc Gaming.
Yeah, they bit off a bit more than they could chew, trying to go for this rotation now, as In Style will be the next to go down. It's all up to Darken, left as a solo Gibraltar. At the very least, he does at least have that fully charged up Evo Shield there to work with, and it's Triumph who have taken this position in the north to try and play Gatekeeper up against teams like AHG.
Absolutely. Triumph, a team that's certainly been on our radar as well, names that anyone who's been watching competitive Apex will recognize, but they're sitting in 18th right now with only 6 points. they are one of the teams on our list that needs a very big game 4 and 5 to even be part of the conversation coming out of this week. But now also taking a look at Ad Hoc, they've made the move. They're now in here from Dome. They were the team that just pushed on that Lava City building, now playing edge as much as they can, but Kuya taking a whole lot of damage, somehow is able to get away, and they will now force some heals as well. They should have a moment to breathe.
Yep, Zipeth, of course, doing what he does best there, as he did have the highest HP for his team, so he was just covering the angle now, but they do have a nice pocket to work with here to fully stabilize before they make their next move. This is going to be interesting, as it does pull over towards that train station. On board, we were for just a moment with Nasky Dell and Strafe, but they're just trading away now as we're down to 12 squads, 36 players remaining. So no solos running around, no rats, and so you have to expect it's going to be full 3v3s in every single fight you take.
Absolutely, and now Eazy-E not quite completely alone on the train, but right now certainly one of the only teams setting up on these train cars. But if you take a look at the minimap, only 2 buildings, right? 12 squads left and only 2 buildings in this next ring. This will be carnage. Teams are going to be flying out of all 4 of the western Lava City buildings. And of course, the westernmost buildings are going to be the ones that are going to have to move first. Teams on the east are going to be looking to try to get those picks. It's going to be absolute chaos here on this next move.
Strafe taking a lot of damage, but at least they're still alive right now. They definitely want to try and make it to the top 5. They haven't even broken top 10 quite yet, but carnage, like you said, is going to ensue. Now, we do have a few levels to work with on the train station, but I only imagine about 2 teams being able to play there. There is a pocket on the right-hand side, so that might be a 3rd team that's able to take position there. The open, though, yeah, I don't see how half the lobby is going to be able to survive this as the zone does start to close now.
Absolutely. Now let's just see that close coming in, and now really it's going to be teams praying that other squads are looking the other direction, as they're going to have to make some movements very quickly here across this open area. Kill feed starts to light up. Na'Vi, Morning Stars, as well as Dead Inside picking up a few of those first picks. Even more coming in for Morning Stars, Na'Vi, and also Ad Hoc Gaming as well. Just like that, we're into our top 10.
Yeah, Nasky, Dell, and Strafe go down there, and that's a huge stop to them, as they were sitting at 31 points before this here. And so stopping that momentum, making their game number 5 even that much more crucial. It's going to be huge going into this. Right now, we got to concentrate on Myth, who are sitting at 32 points overall, and they want to maintain that kind of lead up going into game number 5 here. This could be a huge statement for them.
Absolutely. Myth, a team that we talked about, they looked very good coming out of the first 2 games of the last online tournament. Right now, they're sitting in first. They're tied up with 32 points, so we've seen some very good holds from them, and they're going to look to have an even stronger finish in this tournament, though, as we see Eazy-E still getting pressured. They need to be careful here as how they play this. So just a little bit over half of the lobby survives that one, but now as it will be an ending there, as we see Eazy-E going out in the feed. Cooler and Na'Vi are going to be a few of the teams that get KP out of that, but now back into Myth, still looking for a little bit of that poke damage. Sharp not too far off of that red, 200 damage, away.
Yeah, we're down to 7 squads, with 21 players. So it's going to be full squads here. But luckily, nice pocket coming out for this 4-story building. So the teams that are up here, they're going to be looking to try and get whatever KP they can for whatever teams that have to go out into the open. As you can see, now the Wraith portal coming in. We do have a little bit in the bottom left to work with, as we do have that caustic gas coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking a look at exactly, I don't have an eye on exactly whose Wraith that is. That could be, if I'm not mistaken, it could be an Alliance Wraith, so that could be Hackers down there. We'll have to get confirmation on it exactly that's who's down there, but we do see Matafe actually getting down there by Oxbow. Some good wing poke from him as well, but you saw just as Myth tried to take a look at that Wraith, they can't even peek because of how much pressure's coming in now. Round 6 is closing in. Once again, we're going to see some teams drop here as well. Taze is the first victim.
Yeah, so Dead Inside will go down now. Just it's a matter of where do they finish off, as teams are going down left, right, and center. Alliance picking up some kills themselves here. Looks like they might have survived, possibly get into the top 5 here, as AHG goes down to top 6.
Yeah, look at this now. Myth is still the team we're watching. Can't blame the observers here because they are the ones in control. They have this balcony. They are sitting on all purple. Sharp very close to a red as well. Any shot in any part of the body will certainly be the one to do it now. More shots coming in. This is Myth's game to lose.
Gamers Origin, it looks like they are the team that are on the ultimate high ground here. As the pings do come out, it looks like the zone pulls just a little bit there, straight down to the south, and so now they're holding on to that position. We'll see if they can set up for it. 17% off from his bombardment here. We'll see if he gets it in time to really try and put more pressure on to this team on the low ground. They do have enough time. I mean, it's 1 minute left here before the next zone closes. It's going to be Gamers Origin picking up 2 kills off of Na'Vi.
Absolutely. What they wouldn't do, Gamers Origin, for a Thermite up top, is they're just trying to get that scout damage and pokes onto that fence. They just don't have the angles. As we take a look and see Myth still holding here on level 2. You see Gamers Origin also holding on level 3. They're on all blue. Last time we checked, Myth with a little bit of an armor advantage on double purple as well as a red Evo as well. This will come down here now to just 4 squads remaining. We do have Gamers Origin on the height on the roof. By the way, Faizu, the only player, you see him on screen now, from Na'Vi, the only player alive. He's able to get that gold, and now just trying to rat out as much as he can on that fence. It's rough times for Faizu, but they have made him into top 4.
This is reminding me of Gun Gale Online, using the death boxes there to set up a little bit of a fortress for himself, and he's got the armor swaps to work with as well. But now, as that solo red, he just wants to try and get that extra placement, maybe pick up a KP if he can. During this last scramble here, we have Gamers Origin setting up that Wraith portal here in case they have to go for a heal off as the zone does close in on them.
And here we go now. They're able to get, and they're going to actually get the pinhole on top. Look at how well this roof now. We're going to have maybe a potential, first time we've seen one in a while, going to have a potential heal off here between these two teams. You can be sure that's almost certainly going to be the case based on exactly where this pinprick of a hill is. It's going to just be a battle of the self-traces and the pre-heals in terms of who can outlast the other team. With 4 squads left, it's going to be a pretty wild heal off between every single level of this building.
The important part is that Faizu himself, he's got a gold shield to try and work with here. So we'll see if that Bastille can help him out now. As Sharp takes a lot of damage, he will go down.
Actually, Myth going to be the ones that's getting a little bit of aggression going on now. Amaz is going to be the only player. They did not want to wait till just the end of the heal off. Amaz will fall as well. I believe that's going to be game over. If I'm not mistaken, it could be a game over. Excuse me, it could be a Gamers Origin victory from up top. We didn't exactly see in the feed if that is going to be the case. So we'll have to see exactly when that scoreboard does come up. With a 4-squad remaining heal off, you don't exactly get the opportunity to see exactly who might win it. But I think if I'm not mistaken, I'm looking forward to seeing. Was it Alliance in the end?
Yeah, that was absolutely beautiful coming out there. Even though, of course, by the end of the game, right, you end up start running out of your utility. But the thing is, that's the nice thing about having a Caustic. Caustic is able to refresh his utility, and he kind of has, of course, a throwable with his barrels there. And you saw at the end, he was just throwing barrels on every single level on top of all those teams. And so that does throw off your calculations for those heal-offs, and a lot of the teams weren't able to execute their plan completely.
And they actually ended with a 10-kill win there as well. It's going to be IPN that picks up 6. So that's their Caustic, picking up 6 kills there. Myth gets second place. It's going to be only 3 kills to their name, as well as Gamers Origin. In the end, they did get 4th. But like you said, everything goes out the window, and I think that's just another great example of Caustic being in the meta. First of all, we talked about Alliance's battle. They have to get to the late game. They have a strategy that is, of course, dependent on being there in that late game. But when you do have a Caustic able to throw barrels in, that changes the game. This is no longer just a battle between Wraith portals, pre-heals with medkits, and timing those perfectly. Caustic can just run around. As if you're able to get a few barrels down, it'll change the whole game. It gets them a win there.
Yeah, that extra tick or 2 of damage that he's able to get off with that gas. Again, we saw every Wraith was setting up for that pre-heal. We even had Faizu from Na'Vi setting it up for himself. I don't know if he got a barrel on top of him, but Alliance were able to just close it out, and that is just the strength. If you get, of course, the Caustic into that final circle, he's able to close out a game by himself, and that's what we got to see IPN do. Fantastic performance coming out of them. Will it be enough, though, to really get them into the running as we head into game number 5?
Yeah, keep in mind, we take a look at that. The standings going into that last game was Dead Inside and Myth tied in first place. GSD, Nastrafe Dell in third, as well as Ad Hoc Gaming in fourth. So once again, it's a very different top 3 from our overall results that kind of mixes that up. And like you said, Jamerson, going to be a fantastic game at number 5 that's going to be coming up in just a bit. Going to throw to our analysts in just a moment, but Caustic continuing to keep things interesting here without a doubt. And you have to wonder in terms of where Alliance might sit. We're going to check because coming into that, keep in mind, Alliance was in 10th place. So a 10-kill win, a 10-kill first place victory in terms of points is going to be pretty big for them, and potentially going to be setting them up for a great game number 5 to get ready for that game number 5 and also break down the madness that we saw at the end of game number 4. We're back over to Rain Day and Hotsick.
Thank you so much, Brav, Jamerson. Great cast, fellas. A lot that went down, Hodzic, that we can look at. And I want to start with you. Just some post-match reactions on that crazy skirmish. It was a battle of heights, of levels, and it ended up going the way of Alliance for the first time today with the Caustic.
Yeah, I'm not sure we were able to catch it right there at the end. But yeah, when you're in that kind of situation, it's a battle of basically not just heights. It's a battle of who has the gold res shield. Not sure exactly how Alliance pulled it out, if they just did a heal off and they did, they planned their Wraith portals a little bit better. But if any one team has the gold res shield there and none of the other teams do, that's just an instant win. So again, it's unfortunate we couldn't see just everybody and like their equipment and stuff like that, but I'm willing to bet that the team that won had a gold res on them.
Well, what's so interesting, too, is that you look at all four teams the way they were set up. And Gamers Origin were at the high ground, and Na'Vi were on that low outskirt around that little metal fence, essentially, where they were able to look down, fire kills, and Na'Vi was trying to just survive without getting into a battle of trying to run around while being shot by a G7 scout. But you saw Myth in a really commanding position. They were in the top of the wins as far as so far today. There were 32 points on the total leaderboard, and it seemed like they were in the ideal position to fight and also not get shot at in these final moments. But Gamers Origin, a little thing you don't notice about them. We're watching Myth. Gamers Origin, remember they placed that portal? They don't have it here. And it's because of the new change that happened to Wraith, where if you put both ends of your portal into that end zone for more than 4 seconds, they disappear. So I feel like that's partly why they just full commit and full send here to get aggressive. Hodzic, there it is. I think we're seeing a little bit of it. The Caustic Gas goes off early, and that's probably what did it.
Oh yeah, actually that's a big, basically your goal in this situation is if you don't have a gold res, then you want your Wraith to stall as much as possible, doing the portal juggling, and then the other two on your team, their goal is to just go and do as much HP damage to the actual other team's Wraiths, because they're the ones that are going to last the longest. And that's basically what IPN did. That's actually, I didn't even catch that the first time I watched it. That little cheeky barrel throw. I like that. Definitely caused a lot of damage to them and probably is the reason they won.
Yeah, I feel like that actually had to have given them just that extra tick. Plus, it threw off whatever plan they were about to do at that moment as well. You think the Caustic's very defensive, but he's the most offensive, defensive legend you could probably have, considering the fact that that can be used so well to really disrupt people and be thrown into these situations where now I've got to do something else than what I thought I was able to do. So an incredible showcase there, but let's look at the impact of Alliance winning. They were at 18 points, Hodzic, 10 points for kills, 12 points for a win. That's a 22-point game. That would tie them. That would essentially put them at 40 points right now. And that would be 8 ahead of currently where we saw Dead Inside and Myth sitting with 32. So they're going to be in the mix. Myth obviously will be getting a good amount of points from that. But Alliance, could they actually take this one yet again with a strong performance in 5? Do you think you see that happening?
As it's been the tale of the entire tournament so far, like I hate to sound like a broken record, but even with their lead, and I don't think it's going to be a big one. Actually, I think Myth is still going to be first. I believe they placed second with like 3 kills. I could be wrong on that though, but I'm sure Myth is still going to be in first. So, but at the end of the day, it's not like whoever is in first is pulling that much more ahead of everybody else. So it's still you got to play tight, you got to play smart. It could probably still be anyone's game within that. Like probably, I'm guessing the top 5 of the current standings whenever we get to see them.
Pretty wild stuff. We're waiting on the final standings here for Game 4, and then of course we have our last game, which is Game 5, and that is going to determine who is ultimately going to win this European qualifier. But I wanted to ask, I don't know. Do you think this was Gamers Origin just using a portal for the sake of it? Do you think they didn't read the patch notes? Do you think it just went into old habits and did something and said, you know what, screw it? What do you think was going on with their plan of aggression and the way they kind of set that portal up outside and essentially wasted it? It looked like. Was there something else in mind that we weren't seeing as viewers that they had up their sleeve?
Nerves, probably more than anything. The portal change is definitely a really rough one. Especially because, Wraith has played for the most part, these end games and scrims have played the same since like the second week the game has been released with the Wraith portals. And sometimes people are cheeky with their Wraith portals. They put it outside the zone so they don't get like destroyed by grenades when they go in and out. So I think it's a little bit of muscle memory in terms of, hey, he's just used to placing his portal kind of wherever. Right. Probably a little bit of nerves as well. Like I said, when you're in that, everybody has probably a heart rate of like 200 beats per minute the second you get into like a top 5. It's really stressful. The adrenaline's flowing. I wouldn't be surprised if it was just a simple mishap, unfortunate mishap.
Well, now we see that ultimately it's going to be Alliance, as we knew, with 22 points. Na'Vi, they're going to have 15 with 8 kills apiece. Myth, they'll have 12 and 3 kills to their name. Gamers Origin, huge kill game for them despite their placement. 6 kills, coming in third as in that regard, tied with Weigers. And Ad Hoc Gaming, man, very consistent performances from them today, while they are in the, I believe, overall standings, still sitting at about number 4. So this keeps things even more interesting for our overall leaderboard, which should be coming up after this. But yeah, I mean, Na'Vi, I think the biggest surprise there, a team that was not sitting in a very commanding position earlier on, 7th with 19 points. That's a really strong performance to get them in the conversation for game.
And that was Faizu too. Faizu was, his team died off. I don't know the exact time his team died off, but that was Faizu basically just being a rat towards the end of the game there.
Ho ho! And so the final point total for Game 4, it leads us into a very interesting dynamic heading into Game 5 here. Nasky, Strafe, Dell continuing to stay in that top 5. Ad Hoc Gaming as well. Na'Vi pulls really close as Gamers Origin falls back, but the top 3 here, dead inside. Alliance move up to number 2, only 4 points behind the winner of the total leaderboard as of this moment, Myth, with 44 points to their name.
Yeah, and that just shows you the strength of the way of consistency works in battle royales, especially. You saw it especially with Team Liquid in NA in the last tournament. They only won 1 game at the end, but they placed second every single one. I don't think Myth is. I don't quite remember if they won one or not, but like they have been playing consistently and getting up there constantly and just making sure they get a lot of points. And that's, you're seeing the strength of it right there.
Take a look at some of the highlights over these games 1 through 4. It's all setting up for the ultimate showdown in Game 5. We've got so many teams on the board who have a chance to claim victory today in Europe. ALGS number 4 with Myth, Alliance, Dead Inside, Nasky, Strafe, Dell, Ad Hoc Gaming, and Na'Vi within 10 points of each other. That is Europe in Apex Legends. That is how tight this is. And of course, the final finish as we look at Game 4 with the way of Alliance, who kind of pulled themselves in that conversation, who had only 18 points after round 3. So anything can happen in a game, Hodzik. We're seeing a lot of back and forth, but again, it's been similar to the themes we've pressed on about Europe and how consistent and how good so many different teams are within this region.
Absolutely. And even though, despite all of the consistent plays, now is when you got to pull out all the punches. Now is when you might see teams do something a little bit more crazy. Probably none of the teams in like the top 5 are going to do anything crazy, but you might see one of these lower teams that know they need a really big game to get a little wacky with it. So
all right. I love it, man. I love it. Let's see if they can get a little wacky with it, brother. We'll get back with some analysis after this one, but it's time, ladies and gentlemen, to get into Game 5. This is the moment you've been waiting for Europe. Let's send it over to your casters and get into it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Jump the gun there a little bit. Rain Day, Hodzik, appreciate the analysis and post-game. As always, Hodzik, unbelievable to have you not only making content for Apex on a daily basis, but now on the analyst desk contributing every single day. Speaking of which, also great to have my man Onset back, and we get to cast game number 5, which is ready right here, right now. Onset, any key storylines or anything in particular you're looking forward to going into game 5?
I mean, the big thing is the Alliance comeback. What a huge game they just had in that game number 4. They've pushed themselves up into second place, just 4 points behind Myth now. But we're talking about those guys. Let's give Myth some love. We've talked about how they are the team who have managed to qualify for every single finals. Can they win one is the big question. They hold down the top spot. But before we get too carried away with things, we have to say, and Bravo brought this up while we were having a chat between games, the fact that they had a great start in the last tournament and then they kind of fell away a little bit in the Game 4 and Game 5. Now they're in position to win. Do they have the nerve? Do they have the steel and the experience to be able to close out a tournament victory?
All eyes on Myth and Alliance. Let's go ahead and jump into a listen-in so we can hear the comms of Alliance themselves right now.
Kanske något som vill komma till oss.
Ja, håll koll nu.
Nej,
Jag tror inte det.
Jag sticker Shane. Jag sticker bakom mig, Shane.
Jag går för mitten av fronten. Vi kan luta till den.
Jag lutar längst borta.
Backpack med blå här. Okej, mitten så är kuk.
Bakom så är kuk också.
Okej, hela tåget sög kuk.
Ja.
Ingenting alltså.
Ska du eller?
Ingenting. Okej, det är Skräksund. Vi gör det vi sa.
And there you have it in the native language of Team Alliance, Swedish, I believe, from Hockey & Co. You get to hear some insights, and of course for our fans coming from Sweden and watching, interesting to hear the internal comms of the #1 team right now, who just went huge in game number 4 to leapfrog from 10th place to where they're currently sitting in second place behind Myth in this game. A massive game number 4. Looks like they're gonna. It's early game fights coming from Red Reserve. The early game aggression continues.
Yeah, early game aggression, no surprise there, but I'm just looking across at the moment at the map and where the initial circle is, and it's taking a lot of the northwestern side of the map in. It looks like it could potentially be around drill site, train yard, or we could see a hard pull to the east as well. So there's a lot of opportunities here for different teams to be caught out by this next rotation. I really feel like a Pathfinder beacon here is absolutely vital with this particular ring placement to a successful navigation across the map, and you can see it here. We do have the Pathfinder beacon, and we can see it is more central. It isn't going to take Fragment in, so probably a train yard drill site ending by the looks of things.
That's exactly what we're looking at. Another location, much like game 3, where there's a lot of open space, open territory. We'll of course see where the ring does pull. Those that are relatively newer to Apex Legends, if the ring is pulling to the northwest, then the likes are that the ring after that will slightly have a preference to pull towards the north or towards the west as well. That's why you see what we see right now in these first 2 rings. We'll see if that continues to stay true with these later rings, but of course predicting where those rings are going to rotate after so many scrims, understanding a bit of the algorithms behind the ring rotations is crucial for these top players. But having a Pathfinder to find that second ring off the rip is perhaps the most crucial, especially if you can pick up some beacons after the fact with some early rotations to towns or locations, POIs, points of interest that also have a beacon for a second or third.
Yeah, and I just want to bring up a point here to show how closely contested this final game will be. Yes, Myth are top of the leaderboard at the moment with 44 points, but you can go all the way down to 7th place where Gamers Origin are sat on 30 points. A 14-point game isn't out of the equation for any of these teams, so it really is very much all to play for. It's the cliche, I know, but in a game 5 to have an opportunity to still win and so many teams still involved, keep an eye on that kill feed, because as soon as we see teams being dropped that are in those positions, so not only potentially win this game, but win the tournament, we need to keep an eye for that.
Yeah, it's a great call out. We see right now Fragment East and West, which is really highly contested in Europe, especially in these lobbies. Nasky Straight from Dell like to land there. We've seen a couple other teams. The early rotations coming through, people taking some insights from TSM's playbook, one of the earliest and fastest teams to rotate. We're seeing that happen right now as we see almost every member of both teams flying towards drill site, trying to get to that side of the map, especially those from Fragment are pretty well positioned right now. So you got to think slight advantage in the hands of teams that drop at Fragment. Nasky Strafe and Dell we were just on board with is one of them. They're currently sitting in 4th place with 35 points, only 9 points behind Myth in 1st. So a solid game from Nasky Strafe and Dell could be in the works. Ad Hoc Gaming tied with 35 points in 5th place overall as well, who we're currently on board with. Of course, they're both trailing the likes of Myth and Alliance early on, as it looks like an early game fight's about to ensue.
Yeah, drill site is going to be where the fights are going to be going down. But I wanted to talk about Ad Hoc Gaming because at the moment they're one of those teams who are very much in contention to win this. However, an early game fight is the last thing they want. They haven't had to rotate too far from their initial drop point to get into this position. It looks like they're smartly backing up now and making sure that they at least get some real estate in this potential end circle.
Wise decision. It's almost like they heard you, or they're professional players, one of the two, as they're going to back out and reset, recognizing this is not the fight we want to get in. We don't want to die early. Tried playing for a pick with some aggression early on. It worked for a bit, but the team was able to reset and get to a defensive position. So Ad Hoc Gaming is going to back out and reset. Meanwhile, on board with Cooler over towards the train site. They're trying to get themselves a nice high ground, nice position as well in train site or train yard, where they know they have a good position and a good location. They know the ring's going to be collapsing towards that area of the map. So currently Cooler, who is not doing incredibly well from a standings perspective, they're in 11th place with 17 points, looking to make it to a late game and get some kills as well.
Yeah, Red Reserve are going to be the first team to fall in this final game as well. So that's going to be their tournament over. They will not be picking up a championship. However, a good performance from them. I'm sure they're going to be pretty happy to be involved in their first finals, I believe, as a squad. And now we're going to be moving over and just looking across some of the rotations that are going down at the moment. And we talk about rotations a lot in Apex Legends. It's a lot easier in a scrim. It's a lot easier in game 1 and 2. When it gets to game 5, that's where the business goes down, as we are seeing another battle go down now, and another team are going to be eliminated fairly early on in this game.
Guess what? That's our number 4 team, Nasky, Strafe, and Dell. They won our first game of the tournament. They will get taken out early in game number 5. That will be the end to their tournament, currently in 4th place, but with other teams that might be able to leapfrog, we'll see where they end up. Ad Hoc Gaming has to be pretty confident about that, as they were tied with 35 points in 5th place and still alive over towards Drill Site, an opportunity to survive here. Currently on board with NWR as they're rotating through train tracks.
Yeah, and just not Ad Hoc Gaming as well. Na'Vi, Gamers, Origin, they are the teams who were chasing that 4th place team. Natsuki, Strafe, and Dell, they're out, as you mentioned, John. They are gone. Dropping that early in the tournament in a Game 5 has to be heartbreaking for them, but just think about what the comms are going to be like now. If they've noticed that in the kill feed, those 3 teams, they are going to be absolutely ecstatic with the fact that that team has been taken out of contention.
Yeah, that's spot on. Currently on board with Alliance, the Kings of game number 4, who leapfrogged again from 10th place to 2nd. Alliance currently with 40 points, just 4 behind Myth. One of our most consistent teams, not only of this series, but of the online tournaments in general. You have to give respect to them. They, of course, are joined by Oxbow, former member of the Powder Puff Bruvs, who broke up after the last tournament, after the retirement of their team captain. And now Oxbow's landed himself on a pretty solid team with this Myth squad. Let's see what he can do.
So now we're watching a team set up in train station at the moment. They look like they're kind of betting on a potential pull towards train station. If you can get some of those high carriages, it's such a difficult position to try and weasel some teams out of if you're rotating in late and trying to get any grenades up there with the Watson ults, just swallowing those up. So the next circle is going to be massive for any teams at the moment. I would say that a lot of teams are hedging their bets by looking at the odds at the moment, that it is moving towards Drill Site. However, we have seen some very hard pulls on that 3rd circle. So I think there's going to be a few teams who are set up in Drill Site at the moment. We're probably waiting with a little bit of bated breath that it doesn't pull away from them towards Train Yard.
Speaking of Train Yard, back on site with Hardeki. We all know Hardeki for quite the monster of clips, quite a few clips that he's gotten. So we'll see if we can pull off some of these clips in these games. One of the most entertaining, fun players to watch is Hardeki on board at the XE right now. Big Chunk Funk rocking a Gibraltar team comp. Currently in ring right now, but again, we'll try and see if we can hop to a team that has a Pathfinder. But with how many teams rotated early, you got to think it might be difficult for a Pathfinder to get another beacon. I don't even know if there's a beacon within this ring to try and figure out where that last ring is. So we'll keep an eye on that, but chances are this ring will continue to pull towards the north and the west. We'll see if that comes to fruition here.
Yeah, I think the teams that we are aware of and are in a good position to potentially put in a big game and maybe win the tournament at the moment that we've seen at Ad Hoc Gaming, who were in 5th coming into this. They're set up at the moment in Drill Site. The same could be said of Alliance, who are set in 2nd place at the moment on 40 points. So both of those are already within Drill Site. They're already towards that potential end game circle and in a great position moving forward.
Yep, on board with Myth SHRP, trying to go for long-range snipe shots. Hardeki's going to get a montage clip, going to down one. That's TS. Revive should come through. Needs to be careful for grenades, and the grenades are going to come through. But, of course, the ultimate will be dropped by Watson, I believe, just after that nade exploded. So they're going to be in a safe spot, at least for now. But Hardeki's still going for some shots here with that triple take. Keep in mind, I believe it was a member of Myth that had a Sentinel just on the other side of the map, putting shots in cross range as well. So this team is between a rock and a hard place right now as they're just trying to survive. It looks like Hardeki and co are going to back out and reset and just maintain control of top train yard.
Yeah, and that's the big thing to do here. Realize that if you're at a disadvantage in a battle or you can't press your advantage either that you thought you might have had, it's the realization, it's the communication and relaying that you need to retreat. You need to be able to get your heals off. And when we're getting with all these teams now enclosing on these different areas on the map, these areas of real estate within ring, the last thing you want to be doing is getting too aggressive in a fight, getting third-partied, and not only taking yourself out of the game, but giving kill points and easy kill points to other teams who are rotating.
Hockey's and Alliance still alive, so you brought up some good points. A couple teams that are in this one, Ad Hoc Gaming, Myth, and Alliance. 3 of our top 5 teams still alive in this one. We'll try and see if Dead Inside, Stanny and co, we saw them a little bit ago. I think they're still alive as well and still in this. Triumph, a team currently in 18th place with only 7 kills, is who we're currently on board with. So they're going to need a really big pop-off and a lot of kills if they want to urge their way back into that top 5 and take home a little bit more of that prize pool on the European side of things. Of course, if you're watching right now and a fan of Apex globally, we have North American broadcast coming up after this European broadcast. Currently watching the European finals with our multinational teams. We're going to see what can happen on the North American side of things tonight, but all eyes on this European Game 5 right here, right now.
As you say, Game 5, this is the moment for all these teams. This is what they've been preparing for. This is what they've been playing for. This is what competitive players live for. Big Game 5s where anyone is still in with a contention and still in with a chance of potentially becoming a champion. So for all these players in at the moment, as I said, the nerves are going to be jangling. The decision-making is going to seem a little bit more difficult than it was early on because one mistake at this point and you are quite simply out of the tournament.
Spot on. And speaking of alive getting out of the tournament here. B100 already ended the tournament life of Nasky, Strafe, and Dell. Trying to do the same for Outsiders here. Outsiders with 26 points. They're still in it in 8th place. B100 in dead last with 6 points, but they have been disrupting so much here as OS now has high ground over B100. So they lost one member, that was Mistral, but they did regain high ground control over B100. B100 is really playing like they have nothing to lose, playing incredibly aggressive in these early team fights. They already took out one squad. We'll see if they can get a second, as it looks like OS is going to try and reset.
Yeah, the team that's being aggressive and, as you say, may not have something to play for as far as, potentially winning a tournament, could really disrupt some of the teams that are playing to win the tournament. If you get pushed, if you get W-keyed by a team who just want to take your spot, want to get aggressive, want to get as many kills on the board as they possibly can before the end of this game, that could be the end of your tournament, as we are going to see that ring closing in now. And the next ring is the absolute moment of this game. Is it going to be towards Train Yard? Is it going to pull towards the open where that truck is in the middle? Or will Drill Site still be contained within that next circle?
Yep. And keep in mind, those teams that are playing aggressive aren't just doing it because they're griefing or they're trying to, but they're doing it because they need to. They need to play aggressive. They need high kills, and that's their only attempt to get a top 10, top 8, top 7 finish. Something respectable of their shooting for. So B100 doing everything they can to play with early aggression. They already have 4 kills to their name. Nice shot with the Sentinel, going to be cross map from SHRP of Myth. And here's this Myth squad currently in first place. It's their game to lose, as they're in a great position here in this late game as well. I believe in ring right now on the Train Yard alongside 3 or 4 other teams. So very well positioned is Myth.
Yeah, a lot of teams are well positioned. As you say, Myth is a team who are just joining us, who are currently holding down first place, but it's only by 4 points, and that can change in the blink of an eye. Should they lose a player? Should they pick up a kill point? All of those factors are coming into the game at the moment. In this game 5, 1 minute 10 or so until we see that next circle closing. That is the moment we're waiting for.
And we just saw Noises, who is such a disruptor. We've seen him with so many high kill games so far, or big plays. He's going to do it exactly here. Pushes up. He actually broke ice for his team. Backed out and reset. Let his teammates do the rest. InStyle and Darken going to pick up the last kills. That is it for B100, as NWR gives them a taste of their own medicine with some aggression. 3 kills picked up for NWR.
So now we're going to see a little bit of a period of calm, I think, just before we see the next ring moving in 40 seconds. This is where all of the Wraith players, all of the IGLs are going to be looking around and thinking, where do we move to? Where is safe? How can we rotate into that next circle? And at this point, with the way that the ring is closing, it has to be not only a plan A, but a plan B and C, depending on where that pool comes in. So IGLs have got a huge part to play in this part of the game.
And as you mentioned, typically the Wraith, because the Wraith is in the front lines, they're the ones playing aggressive, getting in the fight. So they're able to kind of call things and see things that perhaps others don't see. Also that passive, where you get some extra voices, extra intel if someone sees you, also helps in that scenario as well. Onward up the top face, speaking of IGLs, we've seen some brilliant clips of him as an IGL, getting some good shots in as that Wraith, breaking ices. We know he does, and Wraith does best, but his team's going to be forced to back out and reset here in this one, as they're going to be tagged up quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm just keeping my eye on the top left-hand corner of my screen at the moment, as I'm sure everyone else at home is as well, watching those seconds just tick away before that ring closes. And I think every single team who's involved at the moment, I said they were putting up for prayer earlier. Well, I mean, they're going to be praying for every single piece of luck going their way with that ring pull as it does close in. Na'Vi also set up here, and they are in a position as well to potentially win this tournament. They're in 6th place, and just remember, if you are just joining us, the team who are in 4th place were eliminated extremely early on.
SJP2, again, it's almost like Inception here. They're going to take out NWR, who took out B100, who took out Nasky, Strafe, and Dell. Now SJP2 in a world of hurt. Looks like 2 of his members are down. Denze trying to just survive if he can. SJP2, the winners, I believe, of game 2 or 3. They've won 1. They're currently sitting in 10th place with 18 points. Haven't made a lot of noise since then. And now in a really, really precarious situation, as he will try and see if there's any way, any world where he can revive his teammate to stay alive in this one.
Yeah, Denzel was the player that maybe you do want alive if he's going to be ratting. We saw what he did in that 2v1 situation to win them game. He did not miss a bullet. And if they're going to have any kind of success in this game as far as placement is concerned, he's going to have to make sure that he is not missing one in this game either. But just moving across at the moment, you can see so many different teams who are still involved in the battle for first place, still alive in this game. We're on board with Ad Hoc Gaming here, set up under the building in Drill Site. Now we have seen that ring pull as well. You can see it. It is just including a little bit of Drill Site, but it looks like it's going to be more in the open here, John, which means that it's going to be an even more frantic finish to the end of this game.
I cannot wait. An unbelievable finish to what has been a great European online tournament. Again, the EU scene never disappoints, undoubtedly. Currently on board with Matafe, who's right next to Na'Vi, Alliance, Myth, Dead Inside, 5 of our top 6 teams still alive in this one. Make it actually 6 of our top 7, as I believe Gamers Origin also alive. AHG Ad Hoc Gaming with the addition of Kuya from Kababala, currently next to Navi, and as they're just kind of hugging each other and trying not to fight, trying to play this late rotation.
Yeah, they're going to have to play a late rotation, but they haven't got to go too far. The only problem is, as you can see here, there is not only one team, but I think 2 teams who are in their way, but some beautiful shots coming in from Zippet there with the devotion absolutely melts the player who's trying to rotate. And here comes Matafe as well, putting the portal out. Now AHG are making their move as well, but it is going to be Matafe who gets taken down.
Great shots coming in. Kuya trying to survive for his team if he can, but Zippeth is still stuck in the scenario. Looks like all 3 of them are going to revive and back out. Will a team challenge through Portal? I don't think so. So they should live to fight another day. And interestingly enough, in Online Tournament 3, we saw the same exact scenario. Ad Hoc Gaming was in a World of Hurt mid-game, somehow survived to late game, and ended up winning that. Will we see history repeat itself right now? Is that we actually have Alliance on the top right of our screen. Speaking of history repeating itself, can Alliance get another tournament win under their belt?
Yeah, that's going to be the idea for them. That's going to be what they want to do, become not only the one-time champ, but the 2-time champ, and answer that question that I posed at the start of this match and the start of this tournament. Who is going to be the team to step up and really put a marker down as being the #1 team in Europe? And at the moment, if Alliance can take home a second tournament win, you couldn't argue that they are the #1.
Undoubtedly, the game is in their hands, or Myth with their consistency, the only team to qualify for all 4 online tournaments. They're still in this one, currently in first place. Ad Hoc Gaming in 5th place with 35 points, Myth in first with 44. So it's neck and neck for the winner of Europe, which goes to show how much competition is in this region. A grenade is going to be landed perfectly on members of AHG. As we say that Alliance gets taken out, all 3 of them, I believe, or 2 of them. Look at your top right kill feed. Nothing but absolute madness. A lot of key teams and key players eliminated from this one. When the dust settles, I think Myth is still alive in a pretty decent position. As we said earlier, it is their game to lose.
Yeah, and that's huge. I mean, Alliance being taken out, I'm not sure if they do have one team alive, but as you say, Myth are the team who are still alive here, John. They are the leaders at the moment in the lobby by 4 points, but the fact that they've already made it into the top 10 means they have placement points. Can they get some kills? Can they push towards a first tournament victory?
Currently what we're seeing from SHRP, no kills picked up just yet. Great overhead view here is going to show a little bit of where we're currently standing. 1 kill for Oxbow and Myth, plus some placement points. Myth in a solid spot. We did see Stanny from Dead Inside, currently sitting in 3rd place, get taken out. So again, I think Myth is in the best position of our top teams here, but there's other squads. We're currently watching Samsung Morning Stars and a variety of other teams that are still alive and still have an opportunity to go big in this late game. It all comes down to our top 10 teams remaining as this ring is going to be collapsing.
Yeah, Cooler are going to pick up kills here on Samsung, and it's going to be Limek who's the last man alive, trying desperately to dodge, dip, dive, and hit some PK shots to back off the team who are desperately trying to push onto his teammate. Great use of the res shield, but unfortunately he will be taken down. That is the end of Samsung. Kill points on the board here for Cooler.
Indeed, 17 points coming into this game. It's going to be 3 kills, at least 20 for Cooler. Meanwhile, on board with Myth, we keep talking about their performance consistently. We keep talking about how they've shown up here, looking to finally close this out. Despite a great Game 1 and Game 2 in Online Tournament number 3, they were not able to show up in the late game. This time it's been the opposite story as Myth has just played consistently in Game 3, 4, and now hopefully in 5. A couple shots put in on that Evo shield. You can recognize it's an Evo shield if you get red damage points. They know they're going to be at a slight disadvantage in shields because they are only sitting with blue shields in this scenario, but they're just going to survive. Back out, reset, as we see Cooler. We see Gamers Origin get knocked at the top right of your screen.
Yeah, that wasn't just staying alive in that situation. They managed to take out Na'Vi as well. So Na'Vi, one of the teams who were sat in 6th place, are now eliminated. And the kill points go to our 1st place team as well. Myth are in position here, not only in the game, but actually as far as the leaderboards are concerned, to become a champion.
Exactly right. Triumph, though, looking to rain on their parade. I believe that those are shots being put on Myth from Triumph, who's very well positioned with high ground. And they're going to spot AHG as well. This is, I believe, where AHG was hiding. So, 2 teams in good positions to somehow, some way clutch this up. Maybe getting spoiled by the likes of Triumph. Great Peacekeeper shots from up top. And Myth and AHG now in a peculiar position.
Yeah, Myth have just got to play smart here. They just have to play as late as possible. Don't force any engagements. Reason being, Alliance out. The teams that were behind them, Nasky still, Dragon Dell out. Ad Hoc Gaming, they're still in, but they're weak at the moment. They're chasing Pack, and now we're going to see more kills going down. And I believe that it's actually Myth who have managed to take down Matafe as well. So another kill point potentially for them. They are in prime position to become a champion.
I know right there, Myth got the 3 kills, and they're probably very excited about that, but Triumph was their best friend in that scenario, putting so much pressure on AHG, making AHG feel like if they stay there, the poke is going to be too strong from Triumph. But a member of Triumph is actually going to drop low side here. wants to fight this. They want the aggression. Perhaps they know it's Myth currently sitting in first spot, but they are going to back out and reset. As I say that, their Watson does get knocked from somewhere else on the map. And now Triumph is actually the ones stuck fighting a two-front wars. They're getting poked from their far side, and they know they have Myth right below them. They can't really do much in this scenario to push. As I say that, Myth is looking for their advantage.
Yeah, Myth have to push. The circle is coming in, and Myth might be able to just about manage to stay alive here. They're putting shots on these players who are trying to desperately exit the building, but I believe that Myth are going to lose a player here, but there are still a few alive, so they've got an opportunity here not only to pick up points, but to, again, maybe close this out with a victory.
Exactly right. I think all three members of Myth may have gotten taken out there. We'll see if we can confirm. 2 squads remaining. I believe neither of them are Myth, so it's EXE versus the last remaining squad. Not sure exactly who it is, but Triumph did get taken out, I believe. So did Myth. It's going to be Sonya, Enlayer, and Rugby for the last squad in this scenario. It is former Crow Crowd. Currently getting some good shots in. 1 goes down, 2 go down. That's going to be a wrap. Former Crow Crowd take this one with a Game 5 win. None of our top remaining teams, as we saw earlier on from the top 3, top 4, are able to secure a first place finish. Instead, it's ex-Crow Crowd in 9th place, who had 23 points coming into this one, that take home the first place finish. Certainly shaking things up now on set as we are getting ready to see whatever our standings may be.
Yeah.
You got to think Myth is in a good position.
Yeah, I'm sure that Myth have won it. I mean, I am notoriously bad at mathematics. I always have been, and I always will be. So the last thing I want to do is award someone a tournament win if I'm going to be the one who delivers the bad news. However, the fact that they were in the top 5 comfortably, they had KP to go along the way, and most importantly, the teams who were pushing them the most, the teams who were in contention to upset them, fell before them. So surely it has to be Myth who are going to be crowned our champions.
Yep, and I'm looking here and I'm seeing some interesting data that Myth did get a 4th place finish. That is exactly what they needed. 5 kills, 3 for Oxbow, the newest member of this squad, performing incredibly well all day long. Perhaps Oxbow was the difference that Myth needed. Yes, they were always a great team, a consistent team, a solid team early game, but with Oxbow now, they look to put themselves in their first place finish to close this one out. We will see if that's the case. Of course, Gamers Origin did get 5th right behind them with 4 kills to their own name. That was the only team even near contention. Gamers Origin was coming in 7th place. So you got to think it's looking good for Myth. But first place, EXC. 2nd place, Execute. And 3rd place, Triumph Gaming, who had a nice high ground position and put the end, you got to think, the nail in the coffin alongside Myth to the lives of Ad Hoc Gaming.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there for Myth was not only the fact that they managed to get everything I think that they needed to do to potentially become champions, but the fact that all the teams who were contesting them took each other out. I think it was Na'Vi who took out Alliance. The team that was in 4th place got took out within one of the first 2 teams that went out. If you're Myth and you see that happening, you are literally putting your feet up and you are saying, thank the Lord that this is happening, because it just makes your life so much easier. It takes the pressure off you because you know that you're not going to be potentially in a situation in that top 4 where you're fighting against the teams who could potentially steal away your championship.
That's exactly right. They coasted, but they had to earn it in a tough spot throughout the entirety of that game number 5. To break down that game number 5, we have some of the best analysts in the game. We got the one and only Hodsick and Rain Day. Gentlemen, take us home.
Thanks so much, Fallout, Onset. Great cast, guys. Great tournament so far. But it's not quite over. Our viewers, they're curious as to what will unfold as far as these points. We know that it was some XCC action towards the end of Game 5 and Triumph as well involved. But we all know that in the grand scheme of things, Myth is in a great conversation to be taking first place, but we don't have the official leaderboard count just yet. So we're going to talk a little bit about our post-match moments and reactions. I mean, that one, Hodsick, that was actually it was a little unlucky for Ad Hoc Gaming, which really, as it got into it, became the only team that was positioned to really do something in that top 5 outside of Myth. But they got pressured by Triumph, and it turned out to really hurt them as Myth could just push them and get them out of the conversation, almost kind of secure that they weren't getting contested by any of the other top delegates to win this overall tournament.
Absolutely. And especially, like, we had like a top we had 6 teams. The top 6 were within 10 points of each other. So you had a lot of competition there. And it sucks for all these teams that are, just trying to squeak by, get any points they can. There's a lot of pros that get a little bit upset when like a team that's like, not even contention of winning kind of kills them. But you got to think, from that team standpoint, they're trying to win some money. They're trying to get top 10, and all they need is a decent game. Triumph was in a really good spot right there in Drill, and they were just completely destroying a lot of the teams from that high ground. So props to them. They played it pretty well. They definitely screwed over some of the teams in the contention.
And that was actually one of the interesting things. You know, you look at this team composition too. You look at the Wraith, you look at the Watson, and you have a look at the Gibraltar. And there's no Pathfinder on the squad that ends up winning. I mean, Crow Crowd had a lot of opportunities, and they had a really big game as well. I believe it was game 2, where they showed that this squad can do work. But as you mentioned, it kind of depends on what situation you end up finding yourselves in towards those late game circles. And with having to flex from the building's edge to kind of out in the open space, it seemed like they were able to deal with those kind of tough angles where a lot of teams were able to look at them a little bit better under the chaos than maybe the Wraith, Pathfinder, Watson teams that we saw so far.
Oh, absolutely. That goes to show like the strength in the comp that you're running, because when we first saw the Pathfinder beacons showing it obviously going to be somewhere either in drill or in like that field area, Pathfinder teams usually are just like, oh crap, we got to get a really good spot, because those circles tend to hard favor Gibraltar teams. As I mean, I'm not even surprised just one right there.
Right. And you can see there's the finals of Game 5, the results of this game, obviously adding to the total point score of the 5 games we've played in Europe today in ALGS number 4. And Crow Crowd, they come out on top with a 19-point game, which is pretty great. They had 23 points to start. So what? That puts them to 41 points, which that would be second place if you didn't add any more, 42, but you do. And Myth ends up taking the W in online qualifier number 5. Amaz, Oxbow, sure. I mean, what an incredible performance from these guys. The clutches, the incredible 1v2s and plays that we've seen across the board throughout all of this. Myth, a huge congratulations to them. Alliance with a big game in Game 4 coming in second. And, of course, Crow Crowd, because of that win in Game 5, bumping themselves up into third.
Absolutely. And, you know, they got to be happy about that, going from a 9th place going into that game, ending third is really big for them.
That's
also
huge.
Really big on Alliance. Alliance didn't start with the hottest start, but they pulled themselves back with some really big, I mean, Caustic came in really big clutch in Game 4. But at the end of the day, consistency is what wins it. Myth started out strong and they ended strong. They never dropped a bad game in terms of points. 5 games, 54 points. That leads to about like a 10, in between a 10, 11 point average. That's all you need. 10 to 11 points a game. You don't have to drop big 20 or 30 point games. Just 10 to 11 points per game, and that can win you something. I mean, obviously it's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like that kind of mentality. It's important to take in the account the math. You know, a lot of these teams, they want to win, they want to take out or get those really big points, but it's really just about consistency, and Myth showed that right here.
And that's something to look at from that, you know, inside perspective, where most of these teams have a different way of going about the games at times. Some do look for those big plays, but some also understand that it is a marathon. And this is exactly why you have to see these teams rewarded. When somebody can consistently play second and first here, and then maybe third and second again and second again. I mean, that clearly is a team that shows that no matter what's thrown at them, they're able to succeed in this type of RNG, you know, random situation that Battle Royale with loot and zones and teams aggressing on you can be for you. So an incredible performance from Myth. I mean, hats off to them, and a great story too. I mean, definitely going up and down. We saw Nasky strafe, Dell kind of taking Game 1, and Myth also in previous onlines not doing so well in those 3 to 5 games, really bumping up and having some consistently strong performances here in online number 5. So not only today was great, but I think a sign of improvement overall for the squad, getting better and better, especially for next time.
Absolutely. Big congratulations to them, and shout out to Oxbow. I don't know the other two as well, but I know Oxbow, he's such a nice guy. Absolutely great player with a great mindset. Very happy for him that he won. And especially also happy for IPN placing second with Alliance on his first tournament, being thrown on the Caustic. Like, that's impressive. You know, that's a big shout out to, obviously, or a big testament to Hackus's IGLing as well, too, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it's a team that I think we looked at it and you said, okay, it happens once, cool, but it happens twice. I mean, this is a legitimate kind of team composition. It's a legitimate structure that works for these guys, and it's not that every team can run this. I think we'll see that most teams may give it a try and not have the same level of success as Hawkus and IPN, especially coming into this dynamic of playing a Caustic out of not playing it before. But you got to give him and Vapes and all of the crew of Alliance a lot of respect too. But again, huge plays FaZe from XCC jumping up so much to be in the conversation. You got to love what everyone has shown today in our European finals. And we've got so much more coming up for you guys as well. Today's been a jam-packed, action-packed day of action that I think for you, Hotsick, what was your biggest takeaway looking at how we saw these teams play against one another, how they approached these games? Was a little bit more pragmatic than you were used to? Was it kind of on the nose for what you were expecting from Europe? And were there any surprises or overall things that you're excited to look at for next time?
I think if we go back to like the beginning of the broadcast, I think it honestly, don't mean to toot my own horn, but I feel like I hit the nail pretty hard on the head in terms of what was going to happen. EU is very it's unlike NA, which is very top heavy on like in terms of the best teams. EU just has a lot of really good teams, and it's really difficult to predict. I mean, look, like I said, VP's not even in, LG's not even in, a lot of other handful of great teams aren't in.
Right.
It's very hard to predict who wins EU, but at the end of the day, it literally matter. All that it comes down to is what team was feeling really good that day, and that's at the end of the day, that's what Myth and Alliance and was it X-Crow Crowd? I mean, taking the top 3, they did a really good job today.
All right, well, we've got obviously our teams that won today, but we do want to make sure that if you want to be involved in ALGS, if you guys want to stay tuned for any of these other opportunities to play and to be casted, we want to make sure you guys check out at 10 a.m. tomorrow to go to Battlefy to register. Battlefy.com/ALGS. You can see it on your screen, I believe, right now. Open registration from tomorrow at 10 a.m. You guys make sure to check it out. Battlefy.com/league/ALGS. And you can be involved. This is an open format. And so pretty much, teams are given an opportunity to show up and surprise the world. And that's kind of what's exciting about it. You don't really know who's going to, do well. And, Hotsick, the cool thing is that we're seeing so many teams consistently show up and then do well. And even outside of the professional teams that in a LAN environment, we saw kind of dominate. I wonder if there's something to this. Do you think, in a world when we go back to LANs at some point, these teams are going to just be the talent that we discovered? Or is there something about the other teams that favors them in a LAN environment versus not so much online? Or are we just learning more about there's a lot of great players we hadn't discovered yet, in this scene?
Definitely the latter is very true. Especially with some players, leaving, pursuing other ventures, you're going to see a big rise. There's a big question of like, is Apex, is it going through a really bad spout? And whether it is or it isn't, it's paving the way for a lot of really good new players. Totally. But LAN is a completely different monster. I think the guys that have any kind of big LAN experience will definitely have an advantage because like Poland was my very first LAN. And it's very nerve-wracking. You're not playing on your own setup. You're not playing in the comfort of your own room, your own home, what you're used to. So that alone actually shakes up players a lot. And you might not have the same like crazy plays from some people, but that's where the LAN veteranship comes out. And I think these online tournaments are doing a good job prepping people in terms of like nerves and composure because you still have to have that. You're still on a theoretical big stage here.
Right.
But LAN is a completely different monster, and the true BR veterans come out to shine.
There's been a few patches lately, and before we kind of get to these top 5 moments that really round up our day, I do want to just say, aside from the Evo that we talked about a little bit, aside from some of these other things, was there anything that you kind of picked up on that you see maybe the game trending towards? And this is maybe for those casual viewers who jump in and say, I want to learn something. I kind of want to be a head up on what I'm going to do in my pubs right now after I go play. I'm inspired by these guys. What should I be looking for? Anything that we're finding out? I know we noticed the EVA 8 getting used a little bit more today as well. We've seen a lot of Havoc and L-Star as far as Europe play, maybe a little more so than in North America. Obviously, Evo Shields. What's kind of giving you the eyes from today that you're taking back with for your meta discussion and where the game is trending in order to be on top?
I think the only real differences between, say like this tournament and last tournament is, we saw more EVAs. But Havoc is also a weapon that you're seeing a lot more of recently. I mean, the gun's been good for a long time, but it's just one of those things that people are only kind of just now realizing it. It was the same thing with the Devotion when the game first came out. The Devotion was really good, but nobody really used it. And then now it ended up being a great weapon. So that's only not too much has changed, but that is probably the big difference is just Havoc and definitely a lot more EVA. I'm sure you'll see a lot more EVA, especially on NA than EU. There are some players that are popularizing the EVA on NA. So In terms of overall gameplay, though, it hasn't been too much different. You know, Pathfinder, drop, hit beacon, Gibraltar plays edge, you know, kind of cleans up kills like that, cleans up fights. So definitely hoping to see with Season 5 around the corner, definitely very interested to see how that shakes up the game.
Listen, man, tell me, when are we seeing an Octane Bloodhound introduction into Apex Legends competitive? Is that ever happening?
I mean, not in their current forms, no. Because the problem is, you know, you have Gibraltar. So the way team comps work in Apex, the absolute safest team comp you can have in order to, like, say you played 100 games on every single comp possible. I don't have the exact numbers, but I would bet money that the Wraith, Gibraltar, and Watson comp, on average, would win more games or perform better, have more higher points per game than every other composition. It is the kind of safe comp among pro players. A lot of people think it's a crutch comp,
right?
And then people stray towards the Pathfinder. That usually the better mechanical teams go towards Pathfinder because they value just knowing the circle and knowing where to play more than relying on Dome Shield and rezzing and resetting like that. Any deviation from the Watson Gibraltar Wraith comp is basically just high risk, high reward. Because there are some other really good characters in the game in terms of team fighting, like Crypto, very good, one of the best team fighting characters in the game. But like I said, it's a high risk, high reward pick. And players, when money's on the line, you don't have that many games to perform. Not a lot of people want to deviate from that, you know, very safe crutch comp. And I don't mean that in like a bad way, but it is kind of a crutch.
Yeah, I mean, you would rather not lose because of your composition, but lose because of something that you did, right?
Exactly.
Or maybe missing a shot. So you try to eliminate those factors as much as possible, and then you move on. Hopefully, even if it's a little bit stale, you really do need something that's special to come into and be played in order to say, okay, all right, this is safe enough to where now I feel like I still won't lose because of my comp. Maybe I'll win because of my comp, but if anything, I'm still kind of putting myself on an even playing field, not in a disadvantage right away, which leads me to the Revenant changes, because, you know, we're going to look in North America. Caustic has been introduced in Europe. It's pretty successful. Will Revenant be the character that might get introduced in North America? Somebody do that funky lineup and it suddenly works and it becomes a thing. I mean, what are your thoughts on Revenant after the buffs? Were they enough?
When I read those notes, I was very surprised at some of them. I like it. I would prefer the game move into more of a direction of, hey, let's just make characters really strong in what they're good at doing. You know, let's make them excel. Because I'd rather, even in just ranked, I'd rather see more characters being picked and viable for even just ranked. Not every character has to be competitive, but I don't know if we'll see Revenant just yet. I think his ult still needs a little bit of work, maybe like a range increase or something. It's too hard to use sometimes, even with the health buff. But I don't think we'll see it quite yet.
Or possibly just being able to, like, I feel like just auto say I want to get out of it as well. That's another conversation.
That would be huge.
Just because, you know, you lose the control. I understand the design potential. Sometimes it's like, well, if you do it, then you got to be willing to either leave it or, you know, be on its timer. But I think if you give people a little more control of it, I like the changes though. 50 health backs, huge difference in the 1 health that they got.
Absolutely.
Great direction on that design. But guess what? Great direction on the design of today. I mean, I didn't do it. The players did. They had some incredible moments throughout all of the matches in Europe. And so we got our top 5 ready to show you all from ALGS number 4. As we get into it, we could just look down memory lane of all the great moments that we saw today. Starting with number 5, a little Na'Vi action there with the R9. And just making sure nobody can cross effectively here with that pinpoint aim with laser damage from range.
Yeah, absolutely. Just perched up on that little rock, making sure they're kind of safe, just making sure they're destroying every other team trying to rotate in.
And then you see B100. This is a big fight they had with SRJ P2. And this actually took them out after winning the game prior with a beautiful 1v2. Ended up actually being them going out 19th in this squad. So big stuff for B100. Big moments today.
Oh, and this play was just beautiful. I'm sorry, I thought this was this is another clutch moment from Denze.
Yep.
I thought it was the 1v2 that he had from earlier.
This might be the best one, though. The surprise Caustic. He throws one, misses, gets the last one. They're healing, and they try to shoot it, but it goes off right instantly because I think if you're just someone standing there and you shoot it, someone standing there will prioritize it going off. And so it ends up really being IPN showing the stuff of a master Caustic after just his first performance with it in a tournament.
Oh, this was huge. I actually wanted to talk about this, but we ran out of time. Stanix here, he did not actually see the other Wraith. His teammate was pinging for him, but he lost all of his shields. Stanix won this purely because his Pathfinder with the purple knockdown shield held that bad boy up like it was a Reinhardt. And he had the time to crouch behind it, weave through shots, and just pull off a bat. And that's actually what ended up winning the fight for Stanley, because that other Wraith just got the complete jump on him. He had no idea he was there. That purple knockdown shield the knockdown shield change in general was massive, and it makes for big plays like that. It's very frustrating if you're on the receiving end, but very well played by I don't know who the Pathfinder was on the ground, but very well played by him.
And of course, after that, Stanley took the job into his own hands, said, all right, little man, you're down. You got the knockdown shield. Let me go ahead with this R9 and finish it off. And he hit his shots. You cannot say he did not hit his shots. Big stuff from Stanley and Dead Inside, I believe. But this has been a fantastic day, ladies and gentlemen, and there's still more to come. But before we do that, we want to make sure we thank everyone involved, especially our crew who have been behind the scenes making this all work. I want to thank my man Hotzik, who's been joining with me, as well as all of our caster crews like Fallout and Onset, who have been so good to us. Onset, love having you back in on the broadcast, buddy. And of course, you go to Jamerson and Bravo, looking good, giving you the analytics, breaking down the hype moments as well. It's been a fantastic day. I want to thank not only everyone involved putting it together, but all of you who've been watching at home and all the teams supporting Apex Legends as a community and as an organization, helping to get this game continue to thrive in these moments where we all need a little bit of gaming in our life and something to help us keep staying at home and playing. When things have changed a lot on the outside world, we can keep it going here online. So thank you all so much. Thank you for everybody who's been involved. As always, stay tuned. North America is coming up at 5:45 p.m. Eastern time, Pacific time, so don't miss that. And as always, never give up, never stop gaming. We'll see you all next time.